Chapter 1736. Hearing this, Heavenly Mountain Tonglau's expression changed. If it were her, she would never let him go without doing anything. Controlling with medicine was the most reassuring and direct method. What the hell do you want? Heavenly Mountain Tonglau glared at him. At the same time, she quickly thought about the information about the 3-corpse brain elixir and how to detoxify it. Just in case. In fact, Song Qing-shu had 3 kinds of poisons that could control people. Obviously, he could not use the life-death talisman, and he still had the leopard fetus tendon-changing pill from the Divine Dragon Island. Although the Divine Dragon cult could make many people in Jianghu pale, it was nothing in Heavenly Mountain Tonglau's eyes. If he really used the leopard fetus tendon-changing pill on her, she might find a chance to sneak into the Divine Dragon Island to steal the antidote. If she got angry and destroyed the Divine Dragon cult, she would be in big trouble. In the end, all that was left was the 3-corpse brain pill. Firstly, the Sun Moon sect's reputation was above that of the Spirit Vulture Palace. No matter how high Tianshan Tonglau's martial arts were, the Blackwood Cliff was not to be trifled with. Secondly, it would be useless even if she really attacked the Blackwood Cliff. This was because the 3-corpse brain pill's recipe was different for every generation of Sun Moon sect's hierarch. Ren Wuxing's antidote could not cure her 3-corpse brain pill. Of course, her antidote could not cure Ren Wuxing's poison. Seeing that Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was ready to take action, Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "Don't worry, this medicine won't have any effect on your body. As long as the matter in Western Xia is over, I will detoxify you." Heavenly Mountain Tonglao was different from ordinary people. Her martial arts were too powerful, and she had a huge force under her. Her experience was also far beyond that of ordinary people. If she was really driven into a corner, it was hard to guarantee that she would not do something that would destroy both good and bad. Hearing his words, Heavenly Mountain Tonglao's face became a little better. "Okay, I hope you'll keep your word. Otherwise, although I can't beat you, none of the women around you are a match for me." Song Qing-shu's face darkened when he heard the other party's overflowing threat. He appeared in front of her in a flash, grabbed her by the neck, and lifted her into the air. "It seems like you still haven't figured out your current situation." The other party was too fast, and they were so close to each other that Tianshan Tonglao was restrained before she could react. Feeling the pressure on her neck, her face immediately turned red. However, she was more embarrassed than angry. She was the Lord's spiritual vulture who stood at the top of the underworld. She had never been so cowardly before. However, she reacted quickly. She raised her hands and used the Tianshan plum snapping hand to attack his meridians and elbows in an attempt to restrain him. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. He released his grip and tossed her away. Such a close distance was most suitable for a grappling technique like the Tianshan plum snapping hand. He was a little wary. Of course, the main thing was that there was no benefit in fighting him to the death. "Do you want to fight again?" Song Qing-shu said calmly. Tianshan Tonglao's breathing quickened. Her chest heaved up and down. She glared at him fiercely. In the end, she gave up the idea of fighting him again. She snorted and turned to leave. After she left, Song Qing-shu returned to Yelu Nanxian's room. He hugged her fragrant body and continued to sleep. It was not until dawn that he left her room. The next day, the maidservant Shangwan Shaoxian came out to deliver a message. She said that the princess suddenly felt unwell and wanted to rest here for another day. The members of the envoy group looked at each other, but they did not suspect anything. They all knew that Yelu Nanxian was forced into marrying into Xixia. She probably just wanted to delay the journey. Many people sympathized with her and did not raise any objection to her wanting to rest for another day. Everyone was happy to be at ease. Only Shangwan Shaoxian knew the truth. When she passed by Song Qing-shu, she glared at him and said in a low voice, "The princess is a virgin girl. Can't you be a little more frugal? After being tormented by you for a whole night, the princess can't even get up in the morning." Song Qing-shu was speechless. Just like that, the marriage envoy group walked and stopped. The journey that should have taken half a month took more than a month. Of course, it was not worth mentioning to outsiders. On this day, the envoy group finally entered the border of Xixia. Soon, a group of cavalries came to greet them. The leader was a young man in full armor. He looked like a proud rooster. Song Qing-shu was startled. He saw that he was obviously the leader of the team. He thought that such a young man had such a high position. The Xixia people were really... But soon, he saw a corner of the bright yellow robe, which was embroidered with a dragon pattern. He immediately realized that the man in front of him was the crown prince of Xixia, Brother Ning. Although he could not see whether there were 9 or 5 dragons on his robe, the man in front of him was so young. Obviously, he was not the emperor, Li Yuanhao. So, he could only be the crown prince. The hairstyle of the Xixia people is really ugly. Song Qing-shu originally thought that the Manchurian Qing's golden rat tail braid was very ugly. But the Xixia people's hairstyle was even worse. How should he describe it? It was the common Mediterranean hairstyle of middle-aged men in the future. The hair in the middle of the head was shaved, leaving only the periphery. 2 short and thick braids hung down from the temples. Song Qing-shu went up to greet him. After a round of negotiation, the other party was indeed the crown prince of Xixia. Looking at this person who he did not know whether to call a rival in love or something else, Song Qing-shu was too lazy to go up and talk to him. The other party obviously did not care about him, a general who was escorting the marriage envoy. He did not even look at him and walked towards Yelu Nanshan's carriage. I have personally come to greet the princess. Was the princess's journey smooth? Everything was fine. Thank you, Crown Prince, for your concern. Yelu Nanshan replied politely. Elder Brother Ning had been waiting at the border for twice as long as he had expected. He was extremely unhappy. But when he heard her voice, all the negative emotions disappeared in an instant. He did not expect such a beautiful voice to exist in this world. The two of them chatted for a while. Suddenly, Elder Brother Ning said, "We have been chatting for a long time, but I still have not seen the princess's appearance. Can the princess come down from the carriage and let me introduce the great rivers and mountains of Xixia to the princess?" Yelu Nanshan refused and said, "I am tired from the long journey. I'm not feeling well. I will have to reject the crown prince's good intentions." Elder Brother Ning frowned. The more she refused, the more curious he became. Although it was rumored that this Princess Chung was a famous beauty in Liao, he would not be at ease if he did not confirm it with his own eyes. So, he walked up and stretched out his hand to lift the curtain of the carriage. "Since the princess is not feeling well, I will come up to the carriage and accompany the princess for a chat." "Hey!" The maidservant Shangwan Shaoxian, who was sitting at the door of the carriage, exclaimed. She instinctively stretched out her hand to stop him. A woman's carriage was as private as a boudoir. Who knew if the princess was dressed properly or not? But when Elder Brother Ning flung his hand, she staggered and almost fell off the carriage. Fortunately, Song Qing-shu, who was at the side, held her up. While holding the maidservant, Song Qing-shu grabbed the crown prince's wrist with his other hand and said coldly, "Crown Prince, the princess has said that it is not convenient for her. Who do you think you are?" As the crown prince and the future emperor, Elder Brother Ning had always been arrogant in the Xixia country. He could not help but be angry when he was stopped by a little general who was escorting a bride. He stretched out his hand to push him away, but his face quickly changed. He felt that the other party's hand was like an iron hoop. He had exerted all his strength, but he could not break free. At this time, Yelu Nanshan spoke from inside the carriage. "It is really inconvenient today. I will apologize to the crown prince another day." Elder Brother Ning hastily said, "In that case, I will pay a visit when the princess is well." Only then did Song Qing-shu let go of his hand and stop beside the carriage like a guardian god, unmoving. The crown prince looked at him with hatred and could only leave hatefully. At this time, Shangwan Shaoxian could not help but clap her hands and applaud. "Although I did not like you in the past, you are quite manly today. The princess's love for you is not in vain." In her opinion, the crown prince was a high and mighty figure who could decide the life and death of a person with a single word. Not many men in the world could stand up for the crown prince for the sake of his beloved woman. Of course, she did not know that Song Qingshu had toyed with many emperors in the palm of his hand. So, a mere crown prince was nothing to him. Your loyalty in protecting the princess is commendable. This is your reward. Song Qingshu helped her to sit on the side of the carriage. Then, he threw a gold ingot at her. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would do anything for money? Shangwan Shaoxian said angrily as if she had been insulted. Of course, she quietly hid the gold ingot in her sleeve. At this time, Yilu Nanxian slightly lifted the curtain and looked at her lover with a worried face. We have offended the crown prince. I am afraid he will not let us go so easily. Song Qingshu smiled. Don't worry. I am here to protect you. He can't do anything. Yilu Nanxian was still worried. We have entered the Xixia country's territory. In a few days, we will reach the capital of the Xixia country, and the wedding will be held soon. Song Qingshu reached out and held her cold hand. I will not let you marry the crown prince of the Xixia country. Don't worry. Yilu Nanxian forced a smile. Although she was confident in her lover, the other party was the crown prince. Moreover, it was a marriage between the two countries. She could not think of any way to avoid it. The delegation was escorted by the Xixia country's cavalry to the west. As the sky darkened, they settled down at a courier station in a city. Because of the crown prince of the Xixia country, it was not convenient for Song Qingshu to live in the same courtyard as Yilu Nanxian. After nightfall, there was a sudden noise in the backyard. Song Qingshu hurried over with some people. He found that the crown prince, Brother Ning, and a group of people were trying to break into the courtyard. They were arguing with Liao's guards. What is going on? Song Qingshu asked in a deep voice. The guard hurried over and said in a low voice, It is the middle of the night. The crown prince of a Xixia country wants to enter the countess' bedroom. Chapter 1737. Hearing what he said, the people of the Liao delegation looked at each other and thought, they are a couple. If I make trouble now, they will blame me in the future. It's really a thankless task. With this thought in mind, many people were not so determined to stop him. Seeing this, Crown Prince Ning revealed a proud smile and strode inside. Stop right there. Song Qingshu arrived at this moment and shouted. When Crown Prince Ning turned around and saw him, his face changed. After all, he suffered a little loss in the daytime, and his hand still hurt. But he didn't want to lose his prestige in front of so many people. So he said coldly, Who do you think you are? I'm looking for my fiancée. What does it have to do with you? Seeing that he was as arrogant as a rooster, Song Qingshu really wanted to slap him in the face and tell him that he had already unlocked all the positions of his fiancée. Of course, his rationality made him suppress this impulse. He said lightly, Since she is your fiancée, it obviously means that she is not married yet. As long as she is not married, she is not your wife, but the princess of Great Liao. As the general who escorts her to the wedding, I naturally have the responsibility to protect her reputation. His words were righteous, and the rest of the delegation secretly admired him. Seeing that he talked back to the crown prince in another country, his figure seemed to become taller in everyone's mind. Crown Prince Ning was speechless. He also knew that it was not right for him to break into a woman's room in the middle of the night. But he was the crown prince, so he couldn't be restrained by ordinary etiquette. Bastard, this is Xixia. The princess's safety is naturally protected by us. How can you, a small marriage general, talk nonsense? Believe it or not, I will twist your head off. At this time, a big man flashed out from behind the crown prince. It was Crocodile Deity of the South Sea, one of the 4 evildoers. Crown Prince Big Brother Ning had suffered a loss during the day, and he had naturally learned his lesson at that moment. He deliberately brought the elites from Western Xia's Class 1 hall to help him. Song Qingshu could not help but laugh when he saw the Southern Sea Crocodile God's unique, stupid, and adorable look. Although the 4 great evildoers were infamous in the Jianghu, other than their eldest brother, Duan Yanqing, the others could at most be considered second- or third-rate experts. With his current cultivation, he could deal with them with a single finger. I don't believe you, Song Qingshu said seriously as he looked at the South Sea Crocodile God. You'll believe me if I twist your head off. The South Sea Crocodile God was enraged. It waved its crocodile scissors and rushed over. Song Qingshu did not dodge. When the crocodile's crocodile beak scissors were about to reach his body, he raised his hand and pressed it against the middle of the scissors. The southern sea crocodile deity laughed sinisterly. "You're asking for it." It then twisted the scissors with all its might, intending to cut his hand in two. However, his smile quickly froze because he realized that he couldn't cut off the other party's palm. How is this possible? The South Sea crocodile god's eyes were even bigger than those of cows. He used all his strength, and his fat face turned red. Unfortunately, his opponent still did not move. Song Qingshu could not be bothered to talk to him. He sent his strength forward, and the crocodile's beak scissors, which were made of refined steel, broke in two like it was made of plastic. A cloud of white gas bloomed in front of the South Sea crocodile god. He screamed and fell backward into the flower bed, breaking a tree in the flower bed. Although he was a little stubborn, he knew that his opponent's martial arts were far above his. He got up and patted the dirt off his body. He cupped his hands and said, "Your martial arts are very high. I, Yu Lao-san, am not your match, but my eldest brother's martial arts are unparalleled. He will definitely beat you." Duan Yanqing, who had been silent at the side, held his breath. He did not know whether he should say it or not. His eyesight was much better than Yu Lao-san's, and he could see that his opponent had not used his full strength. However, even so, his strength was unfathomable. He had no confidence that he could defeat his opponent. Worried that the Crown Prince would speak up and put him in a difficult position, he hurriedly said, "Your Highness, Princess Cheng, and is responsible for the peace between the two countries. If she accidentally causes trouble and destroys the relationship between the two countries, I'm afraid it will be inappropriate if His Majesty finds out." Thinking of his temperamental father, Crown Prince Ning shivered, and his aura immediately weakened. "Fine, for the sake of the big picture, I will let you off for now." However, before he left, he still spat unwillingly. "She is just a woman who was given to me to make peace with the Crown Prince. Why are you pretending to be pure and innocent here?" Bah! The faces of the Liao diplomatic corps immediately showed jealousy and resentment. On the one hand, their master was insulted, and on the other hand, when the Liao kingdom was victorious in the past, the Western Xia kingdom was only a watchdog at the southwest border of the Liao kingdom, and it only knew how to wag its tail and beg for mercy. If they could marry a princess from the Liao kingdom, the whole country would definitely rejoice, and they would kneel down and lick their boots. How could they be as arrogant as they were now? Hearing his clamor before he left, Song Qingshu frowned and flicked his finger discreetly in his sleeve. Crown Prince Ning felt his knees go weak, and his whole body fell to the ground. Unfortunately, his mouth hit a stone on the ground, and blood flowed out. If it was not for Duan Yanqing, who was beside him, who had sharp eyes and quick hands, holding him up, he would not only have his skin broken, he might even have his teeth knocked out. Crown Prince Ning got up, and while covering his mouth, he glared angrily at Song Qingshu. Although he did not see what happened, he knew that it must be Song Qingshu's doing. Song Qingshu interrupted him and said, "Crown Prince, why don't you watch your steps? Is it so easy for you to fall? I think any 5- or 6-year-old child can walk more steadily than the Crown Prince. I'm really worried about how our princess will live in the future." The diplomatic corps could hear that he was mocking the Crown Prince, and they could not help but burst into laughter. The anger that they had been holding back just now was finally vented. "You're courting death, Duan Yanqing. Kill him for me." Crown Prince Ning was mad. He had been humiliated by a small general who sent the marriage corps over and over again. At this moment, his heart was filled with murderous intent. Duan Yanqing did not make a move immediately. The other party was really unfathomable. He did not even notice how the other party made a move just now. However, since the Crown Prince had spoken, he could not just ignore it. He looked at Song Qingshu and said coldly, "You're just a small general who sent the marriage corps. You ruined the marriage alliance and caused the flames of war to rise again. Can you bear this responsibility? Or does Liao have no sincerity at all? Are you just trying to make fun of us?" He brought up the national interest, which immediately gave him the name of righteousness. It was much more cost-effective to use his power to oppress people than to do it himself. No matter how high the other party's martial arts were, since he had become the general who sent the marriage corps, he would be bound by the corresponding rules. This marriage alliance was obviously inevitable, and no one could stop it. Xiao Huandu wiped his cold sweat and hurriedly walked over. He lowered his voice and advised Song Qing-shu, "General Xiao, don't let a moment of anger affect the overall situation. If something goes wrong with this marriage alliance, we will be severely punished when we go back." Although he had deliberately lowered his voice, how could he hide it from the eyes and ears of an expert like Duan Yanqing? Seeing that everything was developing in the direction he had expected, a complacent smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. However, Song Qing-shu said coldly, "It's true that the two countries want to strive for peace through a marriage alliance, but it is not necessary to marry this crown prince. If something happens to this crown prince, the Xixia country can find anyone to replace the crown prince's position, such as Prince Yi, Li Longzhua, or imperial uncle Li Qianshan." Xiao Huandu, the Xixia people, although everyone knew that this thing could not be replaced at will, Crown Prince Ning calmed down because the other party had just hit his sore spot. He had been the crown prince for many years, but his father had always been in good health. It was impossible for him to ascend the throne in a short time. Moreover, there were many people who were eyeing his position covetously. Imperial uncle Li Qianshan was the biggest threat among them. As for Prince Yi, Li Longzhua, although he usually did not show himself, people always felt that he was somewhat unfathomable. If something went wrong with this marriage alliance, because of him, it would give Li Qianshan a handle to attack him. It was really unwise. As for the resentment he suffered this time, it was not a big deal. After the marriage, he could vent it on Princess Cheng. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel a lump of heat rising in his lower abdomen. "Today, I will give face to Princess Cheng. Humph, let's go." Brother Ning swung his sleeves and left dejectedly with his subordinates. After they left, the soldiers of the envoy group cheered. After all, they still had the glory of the great Liao Empire in the past. They felt aggrieved that the Xixia people had suppressed them. Song Qing-shu nodded and said, "Return to your posts. I will go and see the princess first." After entering the room, Shangwan Shaoxian smiled like a flower. "General, please sit down. I will go and pour you a cup of tea." Song Qing-shu was stunned. "Did the sun rise from the west today?" Shangwan Shaoxian giggled and said, "Well, that crown prince is more annoying than you." "Ah, no, I mean you taught that bullish *T crown prince a lesson and brought glory to the great Liao Empire." Song Qing-shu was speechless. He waved his hand and gestured for her to go away. He then said to Yilu Nanxian, "Don't worry, I am here. He can't hurt you." Yilu Nanxian looked worried. "But we will arrive at Lingzhou City soon. When the time comes, I will marry him. How are you going to stop me then?" Song Qing-shu sat down next to her and held her hand. He said, "Don't worry, you won't have the luck to live until that day." Yilu Nanxian's expression changed. "You want to?" Shangwan Shaoxian also stuck out her tongue. She thought that this man was really a ruthless person. It would be better for her to treat him better in the future. Song Qing-shu knew that she was thinking too much. He explained, "Actually, it is easy to let him die without knowing why. The hard part is to deal with the aftermath. Don't worry, I have prepared everything. I'm just waiting for the right time to act." Chapter 1738. In fact, the easiest way to ruin this marriage was to kill the crown prince, Brother Ning. However, this kind of simple and crude behavior was not Song Qing-shu's style. Of course, he was more concerned about the sequelae after the crown prince's death. After thinking about it, the safest way was to let the Xixia people have their own problems. According to the intelligence, Brother Ning had been the crown prince for many years, while Li Yuanhao's body was getting stronger and stronger. There was no sign of him dying. Since ancient times, it was easy for the father and son to have problems. Besides, Li Qianshan, Prince Yi, and Li Liangzhua were watching covetously from the side. Brother Ning's position as the crown prince was not stable. All he needed was a gentle push, and the other forces would help him complete the next task. And if he wanted to ruin the Crown Prince's position, it was far from enough to simply flirt with Princess Liao. After thinking about it, Song Qingshu focused on the Crown Prince's mother's family. Previously, Zhao Min had explained in detail that the Xixia military was united by tribal leaders. Half of the army was controlled by the tribal leaders, and the Yeli family was the largest tribe. At the same time, the Yeli family was the Crown Prince's mother's family. If something happened to them, the Crown Prince's position would be lost. Moreover, he could take advantage of this opportunity to not only ruin the Crown Prince's marriage, but also cause the collapse of the Xixia military's first person. The whole Xixia would be greatly weakened, and it would be unable to fight against foreign enemies. At the same time, the power structure would be reorganized, which meant countless opportunities. He had made a plan, and it had been quietly launched. Now everything was ready, except for the east wind. After comforting Yelu Nanxian, Song Qingshu was about to leave, but he was pulled by a pair of small hands. He looked back and found the girl looking at him pitifully. "Don't go." Originally, he thought it was not convenient to be too intimate with her now that the Crown Prince was with them. But seeing her appearance, he knew that because of the Crown Prince's appearance today, she was in a state of fear and helplessness. Suddenly, he didn't care about anything else. He sat down and said, "Okay, I'll stay here with you." What he got in response was the girl's soft body and sweet red lips. Then the envoy group and the Crown Prince's team headed toward the spiritual state. Learning from the previous painful lessons, Crown Prince Ning became much more restrained. However, from time to time, he would glare at Song Qingshu from a distance with resentment. Song Qingshu did not take it seriously, but Shangwan Shaoxian was a little excited. "I didn't expect Min's sixth sense to be so accurate. Crown Prince Ning seems to know that you slept with his fiancée. He hates you from the bottom of his heart." "What nonsense are you spouting?" Yelu Nanxian gave her a good smack on the head. This was a sensitive matter, being teased by her own maid. No matter how thick her nerves were, she couldn't take it. Song Qingshu was also speechless. He had just mentioned the term sixth sense 2 days ago, and this little girl had learned it so quickly. Her brain was really bright. It was a pity that she became a maid. And so, the entourage arrived at the spiritual state city with ulterior motives. The Western Xia sent out a grand welcome party, but the Emperor Li Yuanhao did not come. The other important officials, such as Yili Yuanxi, also did not come. It was clear what the Western Xia's real attitude toward this marriage was. However, Song Qingshu was happy to be free and not have to deal with a lot of red tape. Next, the entourage was settled in a hotel in the city. Originally, the Western Xia wanted to take over the defense, but Song Qingshu stood up and said that since the marriage was not official yet, the princess naturally had to be protected by the warriors of Great Liao. The Western Xia had no choice but to compromise. The Western Xia's imperial guards would protect the periphery, while the Liao warriors would protect the envoy group from the inside. After settling Yelu Nanxian down, Song Qingshu said to her, "I'm going to investigate the Mu Mansion tonight. After all, the Crown Prince's backer is the Mu Mansion. I'm going to investigate them and see if I can find anything useful." Yelu Nanxian nodded. This matter was related to her happiness, so of course she would not stop him. However, she was still a little worried. What if the Crown Prince comes looking for us again? Song Qingshu handed her a whistling arrow. "Don't worry, I have ordered the warriors to not let him in. If he tries to force his way in and you can't stop him, just release this whistling arrow. I will come back as soon as I get the signal." "Okay." Yelu Nanxian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing her nervous expression, Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. "Did you forget that you are also a martial arts master? Although that Crown Prince Ning is not weak, he is not a martial arts master either. You can beat him with one hand. What are you afraid of?" Yelu Nanxian was startled, but then she laughed. "It's all your fault. You made me look like one of those girls in Jiangnan who could be blown away by the wind." "What's my fault?" Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, thinking that although he often tormented her to the point where she couldn't even get out of bed, he shouldn't have made her so weak. Noticing his ambiguous gaze sweeping over her body, Yalu Nancian immediately reacted and pouted. What nonsense are you thinking? I'm saying that you and Heaven Mountain Tonglau's martial arts are too high. In front of you, it's like I don't know any martial arts at all, making me lose my confidence. I can't change my role. Song Qingshu finally understood, smiling sheepishly. Don't worry, there aren't many martial arts masters like you in this world. You won't be so lucky to run into one. Look at how smug you are. Yalu Nancian snorted. When we get through this, you have to teach me martial arts. I don't want to be protected by you all the time. Song Qingshu knew that she was somewhat of a martial arts fanatic. He couldn't help but tease her. Haven't I already taught you martial arts? Yalu Nancian was confused. When did you teach me? Song Qingshu moved closer to her ear, smelling the fragrance of her hair. He whispered, Does martial arts in bed not count as martial arts? Yalu Nancian's jade-like skin instantly flushed red. She was about to hit Song Qingshu, but Song Qingshu ran away quickly disappearing outside the door. I'm going to take care of business. You're so annoying. Yalu Nancian bit her lip, her mind unconsciously replaying the romantic scenes from a few days ago. Her face became even redder. Song Qingshu had already found out the location of the Mu residence during the day. In fact, even if he didn't, it would have been easy to find because the Mu residence was the largest building in Spirit State City after the Imperial Palace. Mu Yuqi was the great general of the Western Xia. His residence was naturally heavily guarded, but unfortunately, it was useless against a cheat-like existence like Song Qingshu. Silently sneaking in like an owl, Song Qingshu was mainly looking for places like the study room or the bedroom, because these two places were often the easiest to obtain information. As he searched, he secretly pondered. Before, he heard Mu Wanqing mention that her mother, Qin Hongmian, seemed to have married into the Mu family, but he didn't know who in the Mu family she married. It was no wonder that he was curious, because the concept of a family in this world was often different from that of the future. In the future, the family would have a few brothers and sisters, but in this world, the family was synonymous with a huge clan. Who knew how many brothers and descendants there were, from dozens to hundreds to thousands? The Mu family was the most powerful family in the Western Xia country, with a large population, so naturally, no one knew which branch Qin Hongmian married into. Forget it. Let's get busy with the marriage first. By this time, Song Qingshu had already found the study room, and the lit candlelight inside indicated that there was someone inside. Just in time, Song Qingshu was delighted and hurriedly hid under the eaves. At his level of martial arts, he no longer needed to peek or stick his ear to the wall. At this distance, the conversation of the person inside could not be hidden from him. Second brother, why did you agree to that envoy song? An anxious voice sounded in the room. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. From the tone of the person inside, it should be Mu Yuqi's brother, Mu Wangrong. The two brothers were in charge of the left and right armies respectively, and were both given the title of king. Of course, what concerned Song Qingshu was not him, but the envoy song mentioned by the other party. Could it be that his plan had already worked? Big brother, why are you so flustered? I only promised to surrender to him to deceive him. The Song people are rich. Isn't it good to get more wealth from them? It would be a waste not to deceive him. Another teasing voice sounded, and it should be the great General Mu Yuqi. But I still feel that something is wrong. There was a hint of worry in Mu Wangrong's voice. The Song people are cunning. It is hard to guarantee that there is no trick in it. Are you worried that the Emperor will find out? Don't worry, I'm not stupid. Outside this door, who has ever admitted to making a promise to the Song people? He has no proof, Mu Yuqi said proudly. Speaking of which, I am also helping you vent your anger. A few days ago, you sent your trusted aide Lang Zai to surrender to the Song people, but he was seen through and killed. This time, we could deceive the Song people and swindle their wealth, then kill the envoy. Wouldn't that be great? Mu Wangrong also laughed. You're still the scheming one. Song Qingshu was eavesdropping when the sound of thieves suddenly came from the courtyard. Mu Wangrong suddenly exclaimed, It can't be that envoy Song's doing, right? Let's go to his room and see if he's still there. Muyuchi clearly had the same worry. Soon, two burly men with Mediterranean hairstyles hurried out from inside. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, and he used his lightness skill to rush towards the source of the commotion. From afar, he saw a black figure hiding from his pursuers. With his exceptional eyesight, Song Qingshu used the faint moonlight to recognize that the figure was Lin Pingji. In a flash, he appeared beside him and grabbed his shoulder. "What are you doing?" Lin Pingji was about to counterattack, but when he saw that it was him, he was overjoyed and quickly explained, "Brother Song, I followed your plan and pretended to summon the Mu brothers to surrender." As expected, they agreed immediately, but they did not take any action. Thus, I planned to steal their way sabers as a keepsake, but I didn't think that the manor would be so heavily guarded, so I was quickly discovered. "Did those guards see your face clearly?" Song Qingshu hurriedly asked. Lin Pingji shook his head. "No, I was masked the entire time." Chapter 1739. As mentioned before, Song Qingshu had devised a plan that had been secretly carried out. Naturally, it was a tactic that had been tried and tested hundreds of times in China's history. He had sent Lin Pingji to pretend to summon the Mu brothers. As for whether the brothers surrendered or not, it wasn't that important. The key was the subsequent series of events. Song Qingshu didn't expect Sichuan to act so quickly. Lin Pingji had already come here to discuss with the Mu brothers. His eyes were filled with praise for his high efficiency. Unfortunately, this wasn't the time to reminisce. The two exchanged glances and decided on the next step. Song Qingshu said, "I'll distract the pursuers for you." "All right." Lin Pingji didn't act pretentious. He knew how powerful Song Qingshu's martial arts were. There was no danger in distracting the pursuers for him. After Lin Pingji left, Song Qingshu purposely ran in front of the pursuers and led them in the opposite direction. Not long after Lin Pingji returned to his room, a series of hurried knocks came from the outside. Before he could respond, the door was violently slammed open from the outside, and Mu Yuqi and Mu Wangrong walked straight in. "What are you two doing?" Lin Pingji pretended to have just woken up. Mu Yuqi was surprised to see him in the room. He exchanged glances with Mu Wangrong and said, "Nothing much. A thief broke into the residence. We were worried that Envoy Song might be in danger, so we came to check on you." Lin Pingji naturally knew what was going on. However, he still pretended to be grateful and said, "Thank you for your concern. I didn't see any thieves here." Mu Yuqi nodded. He looked around the room and didn't see anything out of the ordinary. He then turned to leave. "Envoy Song, rest well. Don't go out for the time being, lest you encounter any danger. I'll keep this in mind. Be careful, great kings." Lin Pingji politely sent them off. After the two brothers left his courtyard, Mu Yuqi looked at his subordinate and asked, "Are you sure the thief is on the other side?" The soldier answered, "Yes, we saw the thief escape to the west wing with our own eyes." Mu Wangrong came forward and said, "Looks like we worried too much. That thief isn't an envoy from Song. If it's not Envoy Song, then who could it be?" Mu Yuqi frowned. "We brothers have made a lot of enemies in the Western Xia. I think they are most likely Imperial Uncle Li Chinchuan's men," Mu Wangrong said with a cold snort. Mu Yuqi nodded and said, "I also think that he is the most suspicious. Besides that, Prince Li Longzhua is also a big suspect." Mu Wangrong suddenly thought of something and said, "Let's not worry about this for now. The burglar went to the west chamber. Isn't that where the concubine is?" Mu Yuqi's expression changed as he came to a realization. "Come, let's hurry over." Meanwhile, Song Qingshu was leading the guards of his residence in circles. Originally, he could have easily shaken them off, but in order to buy enough time for Lin Pingji, he decided to run for a while and then purposely stayed behind to wait for the guards for a while. This way, they wouldn't be able to catch up, but they wouldn't lose him either. However, after a while, he felt that something was wrong. Suddenly, a large number of guards rushed over from all directions. Although his lightness skill was high and he could enter and leave the heavily guarded palace with ease, it was mainly because he always caught the guards off guard. That was why he could use his lightness skill to sneak in before the guards could react. But now, there were guards everywhere. With so many eyes on him, he couldn't turn into a fly and disappear without a trace no matter how good his lightness skill was. Seeing the Mu Yuqi and Mu Wangrong brothers from afar, Song Qingshu gradually understood what was going on. They were the great generals and controlled half of the military power of Xixia. It was most likely that they had mobilized more soldiers and rushed over. Song Qingshu was forced to have nowhere to hide because of the soldiers rushing over from all directions. In fact, with his martial arts and lightness skill, it wasn't difficult for him to force his way out, but he was worried that he would alert the enemy. Moreover, he was still thinking about the scimitar that Lin Pingji mentioned just now. In his plan, whether the Mu brothers really surrendered or not, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. The key was to make some people believe that they really surrendered, and to achieve this, the token was the key. For the people of Xixia, the scimitar that a person carried with him was like the person himself. It represented determination and credibility. If they could get their hands on the scimitar without anyone noticing, then at least half of their plan would be successful. Song Qingshu wanted to stay and steal the scimitar, but the number of Imperial Guard around him was getting more and more. His range of movement was getting smaller and smaller. In desperation, he had no choice but to hide in a nearby room. After all, there were so many rooms here, and it wouldn't be easy to find a person hiding there. However, as soon as he entered the room, he frowned. Because his attention was focused on avoiding the search of those Imperial Guards, he didn't notice that there was already a person in the room. Who's there? The person on the bed, apparently, also noticed the unusual movement. He sat up and looked in Chu Yang's direction in confusion. Song Qingshu was well aware that if he let the other party shout, it would attract the pursuing soldiers, and he would be in some trouble today. In a moment of desperation, his figure flashed, and he rushed to the side of the person, covering his mouth before the other party could shout. Song Qingshu suddenly smelled a light and elegant fragrance, and it was soft and smooth to the touch. He couldn't help but be startled. When the other party spoke just now, her voice sounded a little distorted, and he actually couldn't tell that she was a woman. "Don't make a sound. Don't worry, I won't hurt you." Song Qingshu wasn't the kind of person who would make things difficult for a woman. Feeling her trembling body, he hurriedly comforted her, and then focused his attention on the Imperial Guards that were gradually approaching outside. To his surprise, most women in such a situation would not be so rational, and they would often react violently. However, after hearing his words, this person actually calmed down instantly and didn't cry or make a fuss, so he didn't react for a while. Of course, his attention was mainly on the Imperial Guards outside. Originally, he thought that with the help of the female residents, the Imperial Guards would be afraid to take action. After all, men and women should be different at night. He didn't expect that the group of Imperial Guards would directly rush to the West Wing without any scruples, and now they were going from house to house, room to room to room. The atmosphere of the Western Xia country is so open. Song Qingshu was a little confused. Such a thing was absolutely unimaginable in the Southern Song dynasty. No one would allow their soldiers to break into the female residence in the middle of the night to search one room after another. What if they saw something they shouldn't see? Wouldn't the male owner's head be covered in bursts of green light? Search one room after another. Don't let go of any room. In addition, the archers outside, get ready. Once the enemy tries to break through, immediately shoot thousands of arrows. Not far away came the Mu brothers' commands. This is really a little troublesome. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. He wanted to use a trick, but he didn't expect to be blocked in a dead end. Now, with so many soldiers surrounding him, it was not easy for him to leave. These two were indeed the famous generals of the Western Xia country. Many years ago, they defeated the troops of the Northern Song dynasty several times. Today, he experienced it personally, and it was really worthy of their reputation. Dong, dong, dong. Not long after, suddenly there was a knock on the door outside. "Miss, some evil people broke into the West Wing. Are you okay?" "Miss?" Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect that he would be so lucky to directly break into someone's daughter's room. Although he didn't know whether it was the daughter of the first branch or the second branch, He thought of the Mu brothers' Mediterranean hairstyle and rough appearance. It was really not high to overestimate the daughter of such genes. At this time, Song Qing-shu clearly felt that the girl was poking him with her finger, as if she wanted to say something to him. So, Song Qing-shu simply let her go. Now that things had come to this, she could scream all she wanted. It seemed that he had to win and break out. Unexpectedly, the girl didn't scream and beg for help as he imagined. Instead, she said in a dissatisfied tone, "What are you shouting for? I'm sleeping. Go and search other rooms." Song Qing-shu was startled, putting aside her abnormal behavior. Just her voice alone seemed to be somewhat familiar. Just now, the girl's mouth was covered, most of her face was blocked, and her whole body was curled up in the quilt, so he didn't pay attention to her appearance for a while. Now, under curiosity, he looked sideways. Although the light in the room was not turned on, judging from the firelight coming in from the window, he could see the girl's appearance clearly. The crescent moon shone, the flowers and trees piled up snow. Her face was beautiful and exquisite. Her chin was pointed, her complexion was white and smooth, her cherry mouth was dexterous and regular. Her lips were very thin, and her 2 rows of fine teeth were like broken jade. She was really a stunning beauty. Mu Wanqing. Song Qing-shu didn't expect to meet her under such circumstances. Mu Wanqing rolled her eyes at him, as if blaming him for only recognizing her now. Although her martial arts were far from the others, and she couldn't see things in the dark as if it was daytime, a woman's natural sensitivity allowed her to hear her lover's voice and the familiar feeling from his body. The guard outside obviously didn't give them a chance to catch up. He continued to knock on the door and said, "Miss, the king has ordered that every room must be searched. I hope that Miss will not make things difficult for us." Mu Wanqing's pretty eyebrows furrowed. She could hear the determination in the other's words. She could only pull the quilt away and said to Song Qing-shu in a low voice, "Quickly hide inside." Song Qing-shu was startled. He had wanted to use his martial arts to forcefully fight his way out, but now that there was a more convenient way, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Moreover, the 2 of them had already fallen in love with each other. He wasn't Liu Xiaohui, who would pedantically say that men and women shouldn't touch each other in this kind of situation. Almost without any hesitation, he burrowed into the quilt. He smelled a sweet fragrance, and couldn't help but sigh that a woman's quilt was indeed much more attractive than a stinky man's bed. Because she had just been sleeping, Mu Wanqing's body under the quilt was a bit cool. The 2 of them were so close to each other that he could almost touch her skin if he moved. He felt a burst of warmth and softness, and Song Qing-shu's heart couldn't help but ripple. Mu Wanqing was obviously much more shy than him. Being touched by his body, she was like a startled rabbit, hurriedly shrinking back, and her breathing also quickened. At this moment, the door was suddenly knocked open by the soldiers outside. Mu Wanqing exclaimed and pretended to pull up the quilt to cover her chest. In reality, it was to better cover her lover beside her. "How dare you? What are you doing?" Chapter 1740. Song Qing-shu, who was under the blanket, was shocked. He had indeed heard Mu Wanqing mention that Qin Homian had married into the Mu family, but he did not expect her to marry the head of the family. The people of Western Xia were indeed much more open-minded than the people of the Southern Song dynasty when it came to matters between men and women. They did not care too much about whether a woman was a virgin or not. However, Mu Yuqi was a dignified prince and a great general, who knew how many young girls would be willing to sleep with him. For Qin Homian to be able to become a princess, it could be seen how beautiful she was. That was why the other party had overlooked her past. Sometimes, fate really made fools of people. Qin Homian did not become the Duchess of Jinnan of Dali, but became the Duchess of Tiandu of Western Xia, who knew what she was thinking in the dead of night. After all, there are differences between men and women. It is not appropriate to bring so many people into my room in the middle of the night, Mu Wanqing said coldly. In fact, she was already very polite. If she had encountered such a thing in Jianghu, she would have shot a poisoned sleeve dart straight at them. There are criminals who have broken into the West Chamber. I'm also afraid that you will be in danger. Mu Yuqi glanced at the young girl on the bed. A strange light flashed in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. Look around the room and see if there are any traces of the criminals. Reporting to your majesty, there are no signs. This room was not big, and the hiding place could be seen at a glance. Very soon, the soldiers had searched the room. Mu Wanqing snorted coldly. Can you go out now? Mu Yuqi laughed awkwardly. All right. Daddy will go out now. If you encounter anything, just give me a shout. There are guards everywhere outside. The sound of leaving footsteps rang out one after another. When the door was closed, Mu Wanqing finally heaved a sigh of relief. Song Qing-shu poked his head out from under the blanket. With a wave of his hand, the door bolt in the distance automatically locked in from the inside. This Mu Yuqi treats you quite well. Mu Wanqing looked at the automatically locked door in surprise. Obviously, she was very surprised by his telekinesis. After hearing his words, she nodded slightly. He's very good to us, but what? Song Qing-shu asked curiously. A trace of captivating red flashed across Mu Wanqing's jade-like cheeks, and she said in a low voice, but I always feel that the way he looks at me sometimes is strange. It feels like he wants to swallow me. It really makes people a little scared. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. It seems that he knows that you are not his biological daughter. I think so. When Mu Wanqing was very young, Qin Homian had taken her to live in seclusion near the innumerable Tribulation Valley. A few years ago, they were found by the people of Xixia, and both mother and daughter were invited back to the spiritual state. Mu Wanqing had not seen her for more than 10 years, so naturally, she did not have any deep feelings for her nominal father. With his balding and ugly appearance, any normal person will be able to tell that he couldn't have given birth to a daughter as beautiful as you. Song Qing-shu thought of Zhong Wancho of the innumerable Tribulation Valley. He was also ugly, but he had a daughter as beautiful as Zhong Lingyu Laos and Yin Zhonghe, and the others would know that he was not Zhong Ling's biological father the moment they saw him. Bah, he's my nominal father after all. Can't you be more polite with your words? Mu Wanqing spat and rolled her eyes in annoyance. The key is that she has improper thoughts about you now. How can I be polite with my words? Although he did not see Mu Yuqi's eyes when he was hiding under the blanket, he could feel that when Mu Yuqi spoke to his daughter, his heartbeat had obviously sped up, and the blood in his body had a tendency to surge toward his lower abdomen. What? Mu Wanqing was taken aback. She was shocked by this guess. As Liao's king of Tiandu, he doesn't mind your mother's past and marries her as a concubine. I can see that he likes your mother very much. Song Qing-shu sighed. But every time he sees you, he will inevitably think of his wife and other men. In the long run, not many people can stand it. It's only because you're a daughter and you're so beautiful that he's a little more tolerant. He thought of the multiple choice question that was circulating on the internet in his previous life. If you were a father and suddenly found out that the daughter you had raised for 18 years was not your biological daughter, how would you react? Overflowing with anger, be overjoyed, C relieved, D indifferent, E completely disinterested. Every choice had a strange story behind it. Mu Wanqing's expression kept changing. She had long sensed that Mu Yuqi's attitude towards her was a little strange. But because they were father and daughter in name, she did not think in that direction. Now that she was reminded by someone else and recalled the various details from before, she could not help but have a sudden realization. Taking in both mother and daughter, this Mu Yuqi really has a good idea. The Western Xia's moral degeneration is really outrageous. Song Qing-shu was a little angry. In fact, it was not strange for nobles in this era to do such things. But generally speaking, they would do it in private. And Mu Yuqi just happened to have designs on his own woman. How could he not be angry? Originally, the plan this time was targeted at the Mu brothers. Song Qing-shu was a little worried that he would hurt Mu Wanqing, but now that he knew the truth, he no longer felt sorry. He just wanted to find a way to deal with the Mu brothers so that Mu Wanqing would not be in danger at all times. My mother is right. You men are all bad things. Mu Wanqing's pink face was flushed, and there was a hint of murderous intent between her brows. She had been educated by Qin Hongmian since she was young, so her character was naturally a little extreme. Although she was kind and pure, her way of doing things was completely like a little witch. Song Qing-shu was worried that she would do something stupid, so he hurriedly advised, "Little Sister Wan, don't be impulsive. Mu Yuchi has many guards around him. Your little bit of martial arts is not enough. Instead, it will easily stimulate his evil thoughts and make him completely determined to turn into a beast." But when Mu Wanqing thought of her nominal father having such thoughts about her, she felt her hair stand on end and felt uncomfortable all over. "Don't worry, I will help you solve this problem, but I still need some time." Song Qing-shu then took out a bell and gave it to her. "All right, this bell contains the heart parasite. If you shake one within a certain range, the other will also ring. So if you're really in danger, you can shake this and I will rush over to save you." Last time, he had originally planned to give one to Ruan Yingying, but by a freak combination of factors, he ended up giving one to Ruan Xingzhu instead. But the effect was really good, so Song Qing-shu deliberately made a few more. Of course, this thing couldn't really transmit sound from 1,000 miles away, but it could have the effect of a pager machine in his previous life within a radius of several dozen miles, preventing the people around him from falling into danger. The heart parasite. Mu Wanqing took the bell and gently stroked the patterns on the bell. Obviously, the two words heart parasite had poked a soft spot in the girl's heart. "By the way, why did you come to Xixia this time? Are you?" Mu Wanqing's face turned red, and her expression became bashful. "Are you here to propose marriage?" Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. Only now did he remember that when they parted in Yangzhou last time, he had promised her that he would come to Xixia as soon as possible to propose marriage. But he was so busy that he almost forgot about it. And this time, he had another task in Xixia. Of course, Song Qing-shu was not a rash boy. He knew what kind of bloodshed would happen if he denied it at this time. With a strong desire to survive, he immediately nodded and said, "Yes, this time I did come to propose marriage. But it's obviously not suitable to meet your father now. I'll find a chance to meet your mother and talk about this matter." Mu Wanqing was immediately overjoyed. She stretched out her jade-like arms and hooked them around his neck. Her whole body nestled in his arms. "You're so nice." Tightly hugging the soft body of the beauty in his arms, Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh with emotion. No wonder Mu Wanqing was so popular on the internet in his previous life. It was not without reason. When they first met, she was all kinds of tsundere. But once she fell in love with you, she really turned into a soft girl in an instant and would be obedient to you. At the same time, Song Qing-shu's heart was also surging with endless regret. In fact, the two of them had made a solemn pledge of undying love a long time ago. But all along, he had been ignoring her. Although there was an objective factor of involuntary action, the main reason was that he was too much of a bastard. "By the way, where do you live now? If I want to see you, where should I go to find you?" Mu Wanqing suddenly asked. Song Qing-shu's heart softened. He directly answered, "I am currently living in the embassy in the city. Also, this time I have another identity. That is, Liao's marriage escort general. When you come to see me, remember not to spill the beans in front of outsiders." "You even told me such a secret matter." Mu Wanqing was extremely touched. Suddenly, she remembered something and said in surprise, "The person you are escorting is my cousin's fiancée, Princess Chang'an." "Your cousin?" Song Qing-shu was startled. Only now did he realize that Crown Prince Ningji's mother was the younger sister of the Mu brothers. At this time, the two of them were indeed cousins. "It's the Crown Prince." Mu Wanqing's eyes revealed a trace of disgust. This person wholeheartedly wants to inherit the throne. At the same time, he is also greedy and lustful. Everyone in Lingzhou City knows what kind of trash he is. It's a pity that Princess Cheng and has to marry such a man. Song Qing-shu frowned and said, "He wouldn't have improper thoughts about you, would he? He wouldn't dare." Mu Wanqing raised her wrist. Only then did she realize that she was sleeping and did not wear the poison sleeve dart on her wrist. She stuck out her tongue cutely. "Every time before and after my cousin, he wants to get close to me. However, there was one time when I beat him up fiercely, and he stopped. Song Qingshu's expression was strange. He thought that this Crown Prince Ningji was really very tragic. Noticing his expression, Mu Wanqing hurriedly said, "Do you think that I am too fierce? Actually, I am only so fierce to others. To you, I don't." Song Qingshu could not help but be amused by her. He hugged her in his arms. "How can that be? I can't wait for you to be as fierce to other men as possible." A few strands of soft hair swept across his face. There was also a faint fragrance on it. He could not help but feel his heart sway. Mu Wanqing's heart was thumping wildly. In the darkness, she only felt that her cheeks were burning. She said in a low voice, "Song Lang, after all, we are not married yet." Song Qingshu was startled. Then, he understood that she was worried that he would do something to her. Presumably, Qin Hongmian had suffered enough from being pregnant out of wedlock. In this regard, she had been giving her advice since she was young. "Don't worry, I will leave immediately." Song Qingshu naturally would not force her in this regard. Moreover, he was still anxious about the matter of the waist knife. Chapter 1741. After bidding farewell to Mu Wanqing, Song Qingshu walked out of the house. At this time, the search in the West Chamber was almost complete, but no traces of the thief were found. The people of the Mu residence instinctively thought that he had left, so the security was somewhat lax. Song Qingshu found an opening to leave the West Chamber and came to a row of houses in the East Chamber. He just learned from Lin Pingji that the Mu brothers' waist blades should be in this area. The two waist blades could be considered rare treasure blades. Because they were relatively precious, they were rarely carried with them. They would only be carried on formal occasions or on expeditions. In the end, he found them in a room that looked like a collection room. Fortunately, most of the Mu residence's forces had been transferred to the West Chamber. Otherwise, such a place would be heavily guarded, and it would not be so easy to obtain. After obtaining the waist blades, Song Qingshu went to the place where Lin Pingji was. The location of the guest room was very easy to find, but from a distance, he could see that it was heavily guarded. In name, it was for safety, but in reality, it was mostly used to monitor and imprison him. Casually using a few stones to attract the attention of the guards, he quietly snuck in. Lin Pingji was pacing back and forth in the room, clearly very anxious. When he saw Song Qingshu appear in front of him, he let out a sigh of relief. Big Brother Song's martial arts are indeed peerless. Even with so many soldiers, they still could not catch you. Lin Pingji said with some excitement. "I was just lucky." Song Qingshu smiled, then sat down at the table with him. "I did not expect that this time you would come in person." Lin Pingji smiled bitterly. "Big Brother, you wanted us to find an absolutely loyal, stubborn, and very clever person. How could it be so easy? After picking and choosing, I still could not find a suitable candidate. In the end, I simply did it myself. Although I can't be considered clever, I believe that my bones are still firm." Song Qingshu nodded secretly. Even in the original work, even those who hated Lin Pingji had to admit that he had a firm and unyielding character. But I'm afraid we'll have to suffer a lot in this operation. Moreover, our lives might be in danger, Song Qingshu said in a deep voice. Lin Pingji shook his head and said, "When our Fu Wei escort agency was destroyed, there was no hope of revenge at all. It was you who taught me martial arts and took good care of me. In the end, it was you who took me to the Qingcheng faction to avenge me. I don't know how I can repay your kindness, but I'm so happy to know that I can do something for you. Not to mention physical pain, even if you want my life, Lin Pingji, won't even frown. As a man, I'll take my revenge. I hope you can fulfill my wish, Big Brother." "All right, Pingji, don't worry. No matter what, I will definitely ensure your safety." Song Qingshu sighed with emotion. Although Lin Pingji looked like a girl, he was a straight man deep down. It was really admirable. The two discussed the details of the plan, and then Song Qingshu left under the cover of the night. The next day, Crown Prince Ning suddenly came to visit the embassy. This time, Tiandu's Supreme Emperor Mu Yuqi and the officials from the Ministry of Rites also came to discuss the wedding according to the Western Xia's etiquette. At the same time, they asked for Princess Liao's opinion. Yilu Nanxian couldn't hide anymore, so she came out with her maids to entertain the guests. Song Qingshu was just watching from the sidelines to prevent the Western Xia from having any ill intentions. Xiao Huandu would naturally deal with the complicated formalities of the Western Xia. Crown Prince Ning finally saw the bride's face. He thought that the rumors about her beauty were exaggerated, but when he saw her with his own eyes, he realized that she was even more beautiful than the rumors said. He couldn't help but feel overjoyed and began to flatter her. Unfortunately, Yilu Nanxian had always been lukewarm to him. If it was before, he would most likely fly into a rage. But today, looking at the beautiful face in front of him, he couldn't get angry. On the contrary, the other party's indifference added a bit of nobility to him. After sending off the Western Xia delegation with great difficulty, Yilu Nanxian returned to her room. Before she could say anything, her maid Xiaoxian couldn't help but start complaining. What kind of people are they? They all look like reincarnated perverts. Song Qingshu chuckled to himself. It turned out that Mu Yuqi was instantly interested in Shangguan Xiaoxian when he saw her, and even asked for her directly. In his opinion, he was the king of Xixia, and it was a blessing for him to ask for a maidservant. In fact, even the diplomatic corps of Liao Kingdom did not think that such behavior was out of line. After all, in the circle of nobles, it was common for them to give their concubines to their friends when they were having a good time, let alone a maidservant. Xiao Huandu even hoped to befriend the powerful figures of the Western Xia through this relationship. However, Shangguan Xiaoxian clearly didn't want to be given away as a gift. In addition, Yilu Nanxian and Song Qingshu were protecting her, so he gave up. Of course, the reason why Mu Yuqi didn't force her was because he didn't want to have a direct conflict with the Liao delegation at this time. After Yilu Nanxian married the crown prince, the beautiful maid would naturally go with her. When the Liao delegation left, it would be a piece of cake for him as an uncle to ask for a maid from his nephew. Speaking of which, you should thank me. Otherwise, you would have to serve him in bed tonight. No, maybe he won't wait until night, and will directly. Song Qingshu looked at Shangguan Xiaoxian with bad intentions. Shangguan Xiaoxian's face turned pale. She was obviously still in shock. Bah, I used to think that you were annoying enough. I didn't expect that the king of Tiandu to be even more annoying than you. Song Qingshu, how could she say that? This girl really needs to be taught a lesson. Shangguan Xiaoxian continued to complain. I'd rather follow you than follow that ugly monster. Song Qingshu nodded. It sounded much better this way. You mentioned that you have a way to ruin this marriage. How is it going? Shangguan Xiaoxian was only concerned about her master's happiness for the rest of his life. Now that the fire was on her, she became even more anxious. Yilu Nanxian was also as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. She looked at him expectantly. Song Qingshu was calm. He sat on a chair and waved his hand. Pour the tea. Usually, Shangguan Xiaoxian did not pay much attention to him. But today, she obediently poured a cup of tea and respectfully brought it in front of him. She even spontaneously massaged his shoulders and back, looking like she was trying to please him. Song Qingshu comfortably closed his eyes and smiled. You don't have to worry. The only thing we need to do now is wait. Wait for what? The two women asked in unison. Wait for a message. Song Qingshu opened his eyes. A light flashed in them. The next few days were extremely difficult for Yilu Nanxian because the day of the wedding was getting closer and closer. Until one day, a piece of news suddenly came from Lingzhou City. The king of Tiandu had caught a spy from the southern Song. He didn't dare to deal with him privately and sent him to Emperor Li Yuanhao. What's going on? Yilu Nanxian couldn't help but ask when she found out that Song Qingshu was the southern Song dynasty's king of Qi. Song Qingshu looked out of the window and slowly answered, This is just the beginning. If nothing unexpected happens, you won't have to worry about the marriage in the near future. But I'm afraid someone will have to suffer. Yilu Nanxian was puzzled. She wanted to ask more, but Song Qingshu didn't answer. He only told her that it would be revealed when the dust settles. She could only suppress her doubts and continue to wait. After comforting her, Song Qing-shu decided to make a trip to the Mu Mansion. First, he promised Mu Wanqing that he would visit her again and ask her mother for her hand in marriage. He didn't want to make this girl cry again. Second, he wanted to find out more about the Mu brothers and see how things had progressed. He changed his attire and returned to his original appearance. Since he was here to propose marriage, he had to show his sincerity. Of course, he also understood that this was risky. Fortunately, this world wasn't as well informed as the future. Although his name had spread all over the world, no one in the Western Xia would be able to recognize him except for the four villains. When he arrived at the Mu Mansion, the gatekeeper heard that he wanted to see his master. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Go away. Our king is not free." Noticing the nervousness and melancholy between his eyebrows, Song Qing-shu secretly nodded. It seemed that the Mu family had also realized that a storm was brewing. This indirectly proved that everything was going well. Song Qing-shu stuffed an ingot of silver into the gatekeeper's hand and said with a smile, "Actually, I'm here to propose marriage. Even if the king is not free, I can still meet madam." As the saying goes, money makes the world go round. Feeling the heavy weight of the ingot of silver in his arms, the gatekeeper smiled like a wrinkled chrysanthemum and said, "So if it's the future son-in-law, I'll go and inform you right away. Please wait a moment, young master." Soon, Song Qing-shu was invited in. He was led all the way to the West Wing and arrived at a quiet and secluded courtyard. This courtyard was backed by a hill, as if it was in a deep and secluded valley. Song Qing-shu's heart stirred. A poem emerged in his mind. A peerless beauty lives in seclusion in an empty valley. In the past, this Qin Homian had another nickname besides the Azura Blade. She was called the Guest of the Secluded Valley. He didn't expect that she could also decorate her residence in the Western Xia in such an elegant manner. "Are you the one who wants to propose marriage?" Song Qing-shu entered the house. Just as he was sizing up the layout of the room, he suddenly heard a woman's voice. The voice was gentle and pleasant to listen to, but it revealed a coldness that kept strangers away. Looking towards the source of the voice, he saw a woman dressed in black walking in. Her face was covered with a black veil, but her perky breasts, slender and soft waist, and plump and graceful buttocks all showed that this was a woman who was so mature that water was about to drip out of her. "Greetings, madam." Song Qing-shu quickly withdrew his gaze and bowed respectfully. The other party was Mu Wanqing's mother, so he naturally couldn't overthink it. Chapter 1742. I've known Sister Wan for a few years, and we've always been very good friends. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. This Qin Homian was really cold. She had an unapproachable look on her face. Qin Homian snorted. "Is that so? Why haven't I heard her mention it?" Song Qing-shu held his breath. "You're like a block of ice all the time, and you're fierce to your daughter. It's normal that she doesn't get close to you. She wouldn't say such intimate words to you." Qin Homian suddenly sneered. "Don't tell me your name is Duan Yu. My surname is Song, and my name is Qing-shu." Song Qing-shu couldn't help but roll his eyes. She was really incompetent as a mother. How many years had it been? Her database hadn't been updated. "Song Qing-shu?" Qin Homian exclaimed. "Why does this name sound so familiar?" Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "My identity is sensitive. It's not convenient for the Xixia people to know that I've come here. I'm just proposing to madam. To show my sincerity, I don't dare to hide it. I hope madam will keep it secret." Qin Homian snorted. "Why? Are you famous?" Song Qing-shu was a little impatient after she kept making things difficult for him. He faintly answered, "Just a little." Qin Homian frowned and looked him up and down. She vaguely remembered that she seemed to have heard this name somewhere. However, she lived in seclusion in the empty valley all year round and wasn't well informed about the outside world. So, she couldn't remember. "Your identity is sensitive. You can't let the Xixia people know. Then why did you come here to propose marriage? Do you know that Wan Er's father is the king of Tiandu of Xixia?" Song Qing-shu had a faint smile on his face. Is Mu Yuqi really her father? What do you mean? Qin Hongmian's expression suddenly changed. Madam knows what I mean. Song Qing did not approve of her actions. She should have either followed Duan Zhengshan directly or married Mu Yuqi and properly taken care of her husband and children. What was the point of being so fickle now? However, this didn't have much to do with him, so he couldn't criticize him directly. Song Qing took out a pair of transparent jade mandarin ducks, a piece of high-quality nephrite jade, and a large luminous pearl. These are my greeting gifts from Adam. These gifts were all selected from the Liao Kingdom's national treasury, and each of them could be regarded as priceless treasures. Who knew that Qin Hongmian was in a fit of anger? She didn't even look at them and directly smashed the things on the ground. Who cares about your things? Seeing that these priceless treasures were about to be smashed into pieces, Song Qing waved his hand. A gentle force wrapped around them in advance so that they wouldn't hit the hard floor. Then, with a flip of his wrist, the treasures reappeared in his hand. He didn't put them down. Instead, he used his vital energy to control them to move up and down in his palm, as if they were fixed in the void. He wasn't deliberately showing off his skills, but he was having a headache. It was obvious that Qin Hongmian was extremely repulsed by men because of her early love injury. He had become the fish in the moat. It was all that bastard Duan Jingchuan's fault. He showed mercy everywhere and created such a mess. However, Song Qing quickly remembered that he wasn't much inferior to him. Moreover, there were a few of his daughters among his confidants. Therefore, he was too embarrassed to scold him anymore. While Song Qing was letting his imagination run wild, Qin Hongmian's body trembled. It was obvious that she was somewhat shocked by the unimaginable martial arts that the other party suddenly revealed. This is the lost dragon capturing skill of Jianghu. Qin Hongmian's voice was slightly trembling. It was obvious that as a person of Jianghu, she had a natural sense of reverence towards all kinds of divine skills and unique skills. It's a skill that I created myself. It's similar to the dragon capturing skill. Song Qing heart suddenly stirred. If Madam is interested, I can teach you. He was really stupid. Qin Hongmian's ex-boyfriend was the Prince of Dali. Her current husband was the Prince of Xixia. They were both figures who were second only to one, but above tens of thousands of people in their respective countries. She herself was born into the wealthy Qin family. What kind of treasures had she not seen? Yet, he was actually using those vulgar things to curry favor with her. Sure. Qin Hongmian excitedly took 2 steps forward. However, she quickly realized that she had lost her composure. She hastily stopped and coughed unnaturally. It was obvious that she was deeply ashamed of her subconscious girlish attitude. This kind of unique skill is the secret of each sect. How can I make things difficult for you, young master? It's not difficult. Song Qing smiled very happily. He had finally found a shortcut to curry favor with her. Your younger sister Wan's mother. We're family. So why are you treating me like an outsider? Qin Hongmian opened her mouth. She kept feeling that it was a little inappropriate to sell her daughter like this. However, as a person of Jianghu, it was really difficult for her to resist the temptation of martial arts. Besides, she still had the thought that if she learned this divine skill, she would be able to get even with Duan Zhengchuan's other lovers, especially that be Asterisk TCH from Montois Villa. She had a great force under her command, and her martial arts skills were great as well. When he saw that she was still a little hesitant, Song Qing understood that he had to strike while the iron was hot. He immediately began to explain the principles of the dragon capturing skill to her. Since he had begun to explain the incantation, Qin Hongmian did not have the time to worry about other distracting thoughts. She began to carefully memorize it. Madam, do you remember it? At that moment, Song Qing was no longer restrained. He found a chair and sat down in a very leisurely manner. At the same time, he poured himself a cup of tea. No matter what, he was currently imparting martial arts to her. It was already good enough that he did not put on the airs of a master. What was there to be nervous about? Yes, I remember it. Qin Hongmian nodded. The incantation was not very profound, and since Song Qing explained it in a simple manner, It did not take long for her to memorize it by heart. As he watched her practice nonstop, Song Qingshu nodded in secret. Even though Qin Homian's aptitude in martial arts was not very high, it was still far superior to the average person in Jianghu. The reason why her martial arts were only average was mainly because she lacked guidance from a famous teacher, and all the martial arts she learned were not up to standard. When he thought about how Duan Zhengshun had managed to win her heart with just one 5 gauze light smoke palm, Song Qingshu cursed silently. It had to be known that Duan Zhengshun's martial arts were at most second-rate or third-rate in Jianghu, and 5 gauze light smoke palm was one of the mediocre martial arts he knew. It should be said that aside from the Duan clan's single yang finger, there were not many other martial arts he knew that could be considered good. After Qin Homian cultivated for a while, she could not help but wipe off the fine sweat on her forehead. Why am I still unable to successfully move objects after practicing for so long? Song Qingshu laughed bitterly. Madam, you are too impatient. Even though the technique of this martial art is important, inner strength is even more important. Madam's inner strength is somewhat insufficient, so it takes twice the effort for half the result. However, he was also worried that Qin Homian would lose interest, and then it would be troublesome for him afterwards. So he immediately added, however, I can let Madam experience the feeling of dragon capturing art first. Madam, remember this feeling of qi, and then practice day and night afterwards, you should be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. How do I experience it? Qin Homian was startled. Madam, first of all, please relax your body and mind. Song Qingshu stood up and walked over. Who knew that Qin Homian would instinctively dodge backwards and look at him with a face full of vigilance? What do you want to do? Song Qingshu was stunned. When he noticed her wary expression, he realized that she had misunderstood him, and he could not help but smile in anguish. Madam, you're thinking too much. I just want to channel a wisp of true qi into your body and help you successfully execute dragon capturing art for the first time. This way, you'll remember that feeling, and it'll be easier for you to practice in the future. This is based on Qin Homian's personality. She would definitely not allow an unfamiliar man to touch her body, but she really could not resist the temptation. Of course, it was mainly because she wanted to learn how to deal with that SL*T from Montois Villa. On the other hand, when she thought about the man's relationship with her daughter, he could be considered as her junior, and she could not say that he was an unfamiliar man. Madam, since you don't have any objections, I'll start. Song Qingshu knew that she was still hesitating, so he quickly made the decision for her. He walked behind her, extended a finger, and tapped the bullhu acupoint on her back. He channeled a wave of qi into her body. It had been a long time since Qin Homian had maintained such a close distance with a man. When she sensed the man's masculine and hot aura behind her, she could not help but feel her heart skip a beat. For some reason, she started to panic a little. Madam, please calm your mind and guide this aura through the meridians I taught you just now. At that moment, the man's calm voice traveled into her ears. It was only then that Qin Homian snapped out of her daze. She could not care about anything else and started circulating her qi according to the incantation just now. She had not succeeded all this while because she did not have enough qi. Right now, she felt that her entire body was filled with qi, and her condition was unprecedentedly good. She circulated her qi to her palm according to the meridians, and she instantly felt a suction force traveling toward her. Before she could react, the teacup that was 3 feet away had already been sucked in her hand. I did it! I did it! Qin Homian turned around happily. At that moment, she was a little dazed, and she felt as if she had returned to the time when Duan Zhengshun taught her the 5 gauze light smoke palm. At that time, she had also managed to master it after much difficulty, and the joy she felt at that moment was exactly the same as it was right now. Duan Lang. A dazed look shone in Qin Homian's eyes, and she instinctively wanted to pounce into the man's arms behind her. Song Qingshu only felt a delicate fragrance that gladdened the heart and refreshed the mind, and then he felt the other party pounce into his arms. Honestly speaking, at this moment, his mind was in a daze, and he really could not figure out what was going on. Logically speaking, with his martial arts, even if he were to face someone whose martial arts were 10 times better than Qin Hongyan's, he should still be able to avoid her. But this time, it was really too sudden, and he had not expected that Qin Hongyan would make such a move. For a moment, too many thoughts flashed through his mind, but before he could come up with anything, a warm, soft, and well-rounded body threw itself into his arms with a wisp of fragrant wind. Looks like she has really fallen ill from love. Her longing for Duan Zhengchun for the past 10 years is so thick that it can't be dispersed, causing her to be in a daze sometimes. Feeling the delicate body in his arms, Song Qingshu's entire person became like an innocent little boy, and he simply did not know where to put his hands. If it was any other woman, he naturally would not be so conflicted, but when he thought of the relationship between Qin Hongyan and Mu Wanqing, he felt an endless headache. At this moment, an extremely shocked voice suddenly sounded from the door. "What are you guys doing?" Chapter 1743. Mu Wanqing's exclamation also awakened Qin Hongyan, who was in a daze. Only then did she realize that she had taken the initiative to throw herself into the arms of a strange man. Her face flushed red for a moment. Fortunately, there was a black veil in front of her, otherwise it would be too embarrassing to be seen by others. Even so, she reacted fiercely and jumped out of his arms like a frightened rabbit. However, in her embarrassment and panic, she tripped and fell to the ground involuntarily. At this moment, a pair of strong arms caught her waist, and another hand held her back to help her up. "Be careful, madam." Song Qingshu helped Qin Hongyan up, then said to Mu Wanqing unhurriedly, "Sister Wan, I came to propose marriage. Madam was worried that I couldn't protect you, so she wanted to test my martial arts. In the end, she accidentally fell, so I reached out to help you." Qin Hongyan admired his quick wit. Although she knew that he was talking nonsense with a serious face, she opened her mouth but did not refute in the end. Seeing that her mother had tacitly agreed to his words, Mu Wanqing did not suspect anything. She ran to her side and held her arm, then glared at her lover. "Your martial arts are so high, but you didn't know how to control your strength." "Don't worry, he didn't hurt me," Qin Hongyan finally said. "You said his martial arts are very high. Is he very famous in Jianghu?" This was also the question she had been wondering from the beginning. "He is very famous in Jianghu." Speaking of her lover, Mu Wanqing's entire face was brimming with a light of happiness, and she talked nonstop to her mother about her lover's various deeds. Qin Hongyan revealed a surprised expression and could not help but size up the man not far away. So it's him. Although she had always lived a secluded life, she would walk in Jianghu from time to time. In the past few years, Song Qingshu was the most famous figure in Jianghu, so she had naturally heard of him. However, other than being interested in Duan Zhengchun and a few others, she did not care about others at all. So when she heard the name Song Qingshu just now, she did not react. Right, mother, Brother Song's identity is sensitive. If the Shishao people find out, there will be a lot of trouble. So I hope mother will not reveal his true identity to others. Mu Wanqing suddenly thought of something and hurriedly reminded her. "Girls are really extroverted. Do I look like someone who doesn't know what's important?" Qin Hongyan glared at her in annoyance. Then, when she looked at Song Qingshu, her gaze softened a bit. "You're willing to take such a risk for Wanner. You can be considered to be affectionate and loyal. That's rare." Mu Wanqing looked excited. "Mother, does that mean you agree to our marriage?" Before Qin Hongyan could finish speaking, Song Qingshu beat her to it and said, "Madam has already agreed. Right, madam?" Song Qingshu glanced at Qin Hongyan with a smile that was not a smile. Qin Hongyan's face blushed. As the saying goes, one's hands are tied. Since she had learned his dragon capturing technique, she was too embarrassed to refuse. Moreover, such an embarrassing scene had just occurred. Even now, her entire body was still limp, and she had yet to regain her senses. Really, Mu Wanqing's face was filled with surprise. These past few days, she had been worrying about the gains and losses of the Fu. Suddenly, she heard the news from the servants that a young man had come to propose marriage to Madam. She ran over with incomparable joy. But very soon, she began to worry. In her impression, her mother had always been quite strict. She belonged to the serious type that was hard to talk to. Moreover, she was very clear about her mother's attitude towards men. This time, Big Brother Song probably wouldn't be able to get away with it. In the end, she didn't think that her lover would be able to settle her mother so easily. Chin Hongmian coughed lightly. After all, this was her daughter. She couldn't help but worry for her daughter. However, I heard that Prince Song already has a wife. This time, he came to propose marriage to Wanner. What's the meaning of this? Is he going to make her your concubine? Although she wasn't very familiar with the outside world information and didn't know about Song Qingshu's other female confidants, the matter of him and Amei's sex, Zhou Zhuo, had spread like wildfire in Jianghu. Song Qingshu sternly said, "Although I already have a wife, the heaven and earth can bear witness to my love for little sister Wan. Moreover, in my family, there is absolutely no division between wives and concubines. Everyone has equal status. No division between wives and concubines? Ridiculous." Although Chin Hongmian said this, her expression was much more relaxed. She couldn't help but think of herself in the past. Back then, she had fallen into the river of love and loved Duan Zhongshan to death. She had even expressed her willingness to agree to be his concubine. Unfortunately, Duan Zhongshan still didn't dare to bring her back to the prince's mansion and didn't dare to give her any status. On the contrary, this man before her was still able to calmly express his firm desire to marry Wanner under her interrogation. He was much more manly than Duan Zhongshan in the past. In this life, I won't let little sister Wan down. No matter good or bad, rich or poor, in sickness or in health, I will love her and cherish her. Only when I die can we be separated. I hope that madam can fulfill my wish." Now that things had come to this, Song Qingshu could only use his ultimate move. He took out the marriage vows that had been widely spread in his previous life. Although they were somewhat common in his previous life, they had never been heard of in this world. The effect was excellent. Big Brother Song. As expected, Mu Wanqing's eyes turned red in an instant. Chin Hongmian, who was beside her, was visibly moved. She, who had been hurt by love, could increasingly feel the true feelings contained in these vows. As the saying went, it was easy to obtain a priceless treasure, but difficult to find a lover. "Fine, I'll leave Wanner to you to take care of in the future." Chin Hongmian sighed faintly. Her voice was filled with loneliness because she thought of her own experience in the past. If Duan Zhongshan had been like him back then, I wouldn't have been in pain for half my life. "Thank you, Mother." Mu Wanqing was so excited that she almost jumped up. She directly leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Only then did she realize that she was still wearing a veil. She subconsciously pulled it off. "Aya, we're going to be a family in the future. At least let Song Qingshu see what mother-in-law looks like." How could Chin Hongmian have expected that her daughter would suddenly do something like this? She did not even have time to react before her veil was pulled off. Song Qingshu, who was beside her, felt his eyes light up. She had a sharp face, slender eyebrows, and an extremely beautiful appearance. It was no wonder that Mu Wanqing's appearance was one of the best among Duan Zhongshan's many daughters. Duan Zhongshan was handsome and confident, while Chin Hongmian had such a cold beauty. Mu Wanqing, who inherited both of their good points, would naturally surpass her. "This future mother-in-law of mine looks really young." Song Qingshu secretly clicked his tongue. He did not know if it was because there was no pollution in this world, or if it was because of the existence of internal energy, but he felt that taking care of women was more useful than any cosmetics or skincare products in the future. However, the thing that left the deepest impression on Song Qingshu was her gaze. It carried 30% stubbornness and 30% viciousness, causing her peerlessly beautiful face to reveal a cold and fierce expression that kept strangers away. "What are you doing?" Chin Hongmian had a fiery temper to begin with. This time, she was truly enraged. One must know that the reason why Mu Wanqing would make such a strange oath was precisely because she herself was the same. Her appearance could only be seen by her future husband. If it was seen by other men, she would either kill him or marry him. Mu Wanqing stuck out her tongue. Mother, if the two of you meet by chance in Jianghu in the future and Song Qingshu doesn't recognize you, wouldn't that be a joke to others? We're all family, so what's wrong with looking? Qin Hongyan fiercely glared at her, but she also knew that what she said was not without reason. Moreover, now that things had come to this, she had no way of putting her veil back on. Suddenly thinking of something, Qin Hongyan turned to Song Qingshu and asked, "How old are you this year?" Song Qingshu answered, "I've just turned 30. Qin Hongyan revealed a strange expression, but she did not say anything. Instead, Mu Wanqing, who was at the side, blurted out in surprise, Big brother Song, you're about the same age as my mother. She's only older than you. Shut up." Qin Hongyan hurriedly interrupted her daughter. How could she casually tell such a private matter to another man, when she thought of how the other party was only a few years younger than her, but had to call her mother-in-law? Why did this kind of feeling feel a little strange? At this moment, Song Qingshu's expression was even more strange. In this world, women get married at the age of 10 or so, and there are plenty of women who give birth at the age of 16 or 17. Currently, Mu Wanqing looks like she's only 17 or 18 years old, so Qin Hongyan is at most 4 or 5 years older than me. Speaking of which, are the two of us the same age? According to the conversion standards of the future generations, when I became an adult, Mu Wanqing was still in kindergarten. I didn't expect that I would also enjoy the feeling of a strong brother Dong, and this kind of feeling is really a little refreshing. Song Qingshu took out the gifts from earlier. Madam, you should be able to accept these gifts now, right? Wow, so beautiful. When Mu Wanqing saw the emerald mandarin duck in her hands, she immediately fell in love with it. Qin Hongyan, who was at the side, rolled her eyes helplessly. This silly girl doesn't even know that I've sold you by accepting these gifts. However, now that things had come to this, she already had no reason to refuse. Next, she invited Song Qingshu to sit down again and asked him how the two of them met and fell in love. When she heard that the two of them first met on Mount Hua, she secretly nodded. No wonder at that time, one of her just happened to be hurt by love. Fortunately, she met him, otherwise she wouldn't have to suffer for the rest of her life like me. Thinking that her lifetime's happiness was ruined by Duan Zhengchun, and her daughter's lifetime's happiness was almost ruined by his son, Qin Hongyan felt an indescribable anger in her heart. However, when she saw her daughter and Song Qingshu's current appearance, her anger gradually subsided a little. After chatting for a while, Song Qingshu suddenly asked, "Oh right, what happened to King Tiandu recently? Why didn't I see him today?" Qin Hongyan frowned and lightly replied, "I've been living in seclusion in the backyard, so I don't know much about his affairs." Song Qingshu was startled, thinking that in any case, the two of you are husband and wife now. However, her words revealed too much information. It seems that the two of them are only husband and wife on the surface. At the very least, they haven't lived together for a long time, otherwise she wouldn't speak in such a tone. On the other hand, Mu Wanqing, who was at the side, opened her mouth. Recently, he seems to have something troubling him. 2 days ago, he caught a spy from the Song dynasty and specially escorted him over to the emperor. However, when he came back, his expression seemed to be even more unsightly. These 2 days, he has been running around everywhere. As for what he's busy with, I don't know. Because she knew that her biological father was someone else, and because she grew up in Jianghu and was only brought back by Mu Yuqi in the past 2 years, she didn't have much affection for him. It was very difficult for her to call him father, so she could only use him as a substitute. Chapter 1744. After chatting for a while, Qin Hongyan got up and left. She had been living in seclusion for a long time and was not used to interacting with people, let alone a man. Being able to chat for so long was already unprecedented. Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a slight sense of loss when he saw Qin Hongyan leave with an icy cold expression. After all, even though he wasn't loved by everyone, he'd always been successful in the field of love these past few years. No matter if it was a celestial maiden, a demoness, or a seductress. All of them couldn't help but look at him in a different light. Only this Qin Homian took him to be an ordinary man and avoided him. Of course, this did not mean that Song Qing-shu had any thoughts about Qin Homian. It was simply his vanity that caused mischief. After all, he was not a saint. Quickly recovering from his emotions, Song Qing-shu smiled at Mu Wanqing and said, "Sister Wanqing, let's go out for a walk. I've just arrived in Lingzhou City. You could be my tour guide." First, he needed to familiarize himself with the whole of Lingzhou City in advance. Second, he felt that he had too little time with Mu Wanqing, so he wanted to take the opportunity to accompany her more. Mu Wanqing raised her eyebrows, her face brimming with happiness. Yes, yes. Next, the two left the Mu Mansion together and toured around Lingzhou City. The customs of Xixiao were very different from those of Jiangnan, Liao, Jin, and other countries of the grassland, so there was a different flavor to the tour. Along the way, Mu Wanqing changed from her usual cold image. She chattered like an oriole as she explained to Song Qing-shu about the various places in Spirit State City. Looking at her smiling eyes that were like crescent moons, Song Qing-shu's heart was filled with pity. Such a good girl, yet she had to bear too many things in the past that she should not have to bear. He must not repeat the same mistakes. He must let her always be able to smile so sweetly. After walking for a long time, Song Qing-shu noticed the fine sweat on Mu Wanqing's forehead, so he took her to a nearby restaurant and sat down. While waiting for the dishes to be served, he suddenly heard the customers next to him talking about Mu Yuqi's matter. "I heard that the king of Tiandu caught a spy from the southern Song dynasty and specially escorted him to the emperor. It seems that the king of Tiandu has made a great contribution this time," a wine guest said with delight. "What do you know?" Someone next to him interrupted him. "I heard that this southern Song spy came to summon King Tiandu." King Tiandu was afraid that the matter would be exposed, so he hurriedly escorted him to the emperor to express his sincerity. "The king of Tiandu is only below one person in our western Xia and above tens of thousands of people. Is it necessary to surrender to the Song dynasty?" The man from before said indignantly. "How would I know? But for the past 2 days, Tiandu Wang has been running around like an ant on a hot pan. He didn't even have time to return home. It's obvious that he's encountered a thorny problem." Listening to the discussion of the group, Song Qing-shu lowered his voice and said to Mu Wanqing, "Something might have happened to your father." Mu Wanqing curled her lips. "That person is not my father." She grew up with her mother and Dolly and had no concept of a father in her mind. Moreover, the reason why they came back to the spiritual state for the past 2 years was mainly due to Mu Yuqi's pressure. She was already a little unhappy about losing her freedom. Now that she knew that Mu Yuqi had such filthy thoughts towards her, the only bit of remorse in her heart disappeared, leaving only extreme disgust. Song Qing-shu nodded inwardly. This saved him a lot of trouble. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth it to get rid of Mu Wanqing's father for the sake of Yelu Nanxian. For the time being, you and your mother should go out and lie low. I have a feeling that this matter won't be easy to resolve. When the time comes, you and your mother will inevitably be caught in the crossfire." Song Qing-shu couldn't help but remind them. "Is it that serious?" Mu Wanqing asked doubtfully. She clearly didn't believe it. Song Qing-shu didn't explain further. After all, in everyone's opinion, how could the king of the celestial capital, who held the military power, be affected by such a small matter? After the two of them finished their meal, they strolled around the outskirts of the city for a while. It wasn't until the evening that he sent her home. Mu Wanqing wasn't this shy in the past, but perhaps it was because of the engagement or something else that made her pay extra attention to these things. She didn't want to spend the night with him outside. Song Qing-shu felt that he had shot himself in the foot, but since he still had things to do tonight, he didn't mind it too much. After leaving the Mu Mansion, he went straight to the heavenly prison. Today's stroll wasn't a waste of time. He had already found out where Lin Pingji was imprisoned. Although all of this was planned, he was still a little worried. He wasn't worried that Lin Pingji would reveal anything, but worried that Lin Pingji would be tortured too heavily and his body would be in danger. Coming to the periphery of the heavenly prison, Looking at the heavily guarded defense, Song Qing-shu frowned. Although his qing gong was high, it was useless in this kind of terrain. It was difficult to hide from everyone's eyes and ears. Originally, he could seal the acupoints of the guards at the exit so that outsiders couldn't see anything unusual. But after observing for a while, he found that the guards here crossed and patrolled quite frequently. It wouldn't be long before other people came to see if there was anything unusual. At that time, these people who had their acupoints sealed would not be able to hide. Just when he was having a headache, he suddenly noticed a tall and thin middle-aged man slowly walking over here, cursing and pinching. Damn it, I had an appointment with a girl today, but in the end, I have to be transferred to guard a stinky man. But I heard that the man has soft skin and is even more handsome than a girl. Do you want me to give it a try? However, he quickly shivered and gave himself a slap. Motherf asterisk her. What was I thinking in my head? The crane in the cloud, traversed through a cluster of flowers. What I picked was a beautiful female flower, not some daisy. Song Qing-shu recognized the man as Yunzhong-he, one of the 4 evildoers. Hearing him talking to himself, Song Qing-shu felt disgusted. He didn't think that the world's most famous pervert would have the tendency to be turned gay. Damn it, the more he lived, the more he regressed. He was just worrying about how to sneak in, but he didn't expect to find a way to get in so quickly. Yunzhong, he was still complaining, but suddenly he felt a pain in the back of his neck. His vision went black, and he didn't know what happened. Song Qing-shu dragged him to a dark corner and quickly disguised himself to look like him. Before he left, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and kicked him in the waist. This guy was notorious for picking flowers everywhere and destroying the chastity of good girls. Sparing his life was already letting him off easy, but the tools he used to commit the crime had to be confiscated. Of course, Song Qing-shu would not be so bored as to do things in the worship service room. Instead, he crippled Yunzhong-he's kidney meridian so that he could no longer be a man for the rest of his life. Naturally, he would not be able to commit crimes. Then he swaggered into the imperial prison with Yunzhong-he's identity. Yunzhong, he was an elite from Class 1 Hall, and he was originally sent to help guard the prisoners. That was why the prison guards did not suspect him at all and let him in. While Song Qing-shu walked in, he felt very uncomfortable. Yunzhong, he was always fooling around, and he even had the tendency to be gay. Song Qing-shu didn't want to get himself sick. Would it be contagious if he wore these clothes? Even though he still had his own clothes inside, Song Qing-shu still felt disgusted. He circulated his true qi and covered his body with a thin layer of qi force. It could be said that all evil could not invade his body, but his attention was soon diverted because he saw Lin Pingji. In all fairness, while Lin Pingji looked like a girl, he was definitely an outstanding handsome man. But now, he was covered in blood, and his hands were chained to the 2 walls. There was not a single part of his body that was unscathed. He was covered in all sorts of bloodstains and signs of torture. If it were not for the fact that he could still feel his faint heartbeat, Song Qing-shu would have thought that he had died a heroic death. Pingji. Even though he had expected this to happen, the visual impact of seeing it with his own eyes was still incomparable. After calling for a long time, Lin Pingji woke up slightly. He raised his head in slight puzzlement and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. It's me. Song Qing-shu returned to his original voice, and, at the same time, he sent a wisp of true qi into Lin Pingji. Big brother Song. Lin Pingji was pleasantly surprised. Obviously, he did not expect to see him in this situation. Feeling the warm current in his body, he gradually recovered some of his spirit. This is the 9-turn bear snake pill. Take it quickly. It's good for your injuries. Song Qing-shu handed him a yellow pill. The 9 turns bear snake pill was a holy healing pill of the carefree sect. It had the effect of bringing the dead back to life. It was one of the spoils of war obtained from the heavenly mountain maiden. Lin Pingji did not doubt at all. He swallowed the pill and felt a spicy smell. Soon, there was a flame in his lower abdomen. Then, several warm currents flowed to his limbs and bones. He, who was on the verge of death, immediately recovered a lot of his spirit. It's really a miracle medicine. Lin Pingji was amazed. However, Song Qingshu sighed and said, miracle medicine is just a dead thing. Pingji, you, on the other hand, are so badly injured this time. Lin Pingji hurriedly said, Big brother Song, don't be like this. I came on this mission voluntarily, and these injuries are also within my expectations. Song Qingshu still wanted to say something, but his expression suddenly changed slightly. Someone is coming. Be careful. After saying that, his figure flashed, and he leisurely lay on the chair at the door of the cell, as if he was taking a nap. Lin Pingji reacted quickly. He immediately lowered his head again and returned to his previous appearance of being on the verge of death. Not long after, a beautiful figure came in with a group of subordinates. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. It's her. Although the person's face was veiled, he had already recognized that she was Princess Yinchuan of Xixia country, Li Qinglu. She was also Menggu, whom Shuju yearned for day and night in the original work. Last time, on the outskirts of Linan, he took Huang Rong to the Peach Blossom Island to settle down. Coincidentally, she sneaked into the southern Song dynasty with the masters of the Class 1 Hall and had a conflict with the Imperial City Department led by Xue Yiren and Xue Baochai. Song Qingshu's current identity as Yunzhong did not want to expose himself, so he quickly got up and bowed. Li Qinglu gave him a look of disgust and ignored him, instead walking straight to Lin Pingji, who was in the depths of the cell. She then instructed her subordinates to pour some water on Lin Pingji's body. When he woke up, Li Qinglu coldly asked, I'll ask you one last time. Why did you come to Lingzhou City to look for the king of Tiandu? Looking at the graceful and exquisite girl in front of him, Lin Pingji understood how ruthless she was. I've already said that I'm only here to deliver a gift. I've already told you what the gift is. It's a painting of a turtle and a box of jujubes. Li Qinglu snorted coldly. What treasure has the king of Tiandu not seen before? You came all the way here to deliver this? Lin Pingji answered, If I'm not mistaken, Mu Yuqi should have delivered my gift to you. You can check it and you'll know that I'm not lying. A hint of anger flashed in Li Qinglu's eyes. It's precisely because we have checked that we know that you wouldn't just deliver those 2 pieces of trash. There must be other letters. Lin Pingji flatly replied, You won't get anything out of me even if you interrogate me 1,000 times. Chapter 1745. Song Qingshu was shocked. If things really got out of hand, he would have to save Lin Pingji, even if he had to expose his identity. Li Qinglu's soldiers stepped forward and were about to take Lin Pingji away. Lin Pingji suddenly looked up to the sky and sighed, I have failed to live up to the general's kindness. I can't complete this important task. Wait. Li Qinglu raised her hand to stop her soldiers from taking him away. Then she came in front of Lin Pingji and said condescendingly, Have you thought it through? The expression on Lin Pingji's face kept changing. Apparently, he was struggling mentally. Li Qinglu took the opportunity to say, No matter what, you have to tell us eventually. Instead of telling us later, you'd better tell us earlier to avoid physical pain. We won't mistreat you. Lin Pingji finally opened his mouth. If I tell you, will you spare my life? Of course. Li Qinglu couldn't help but feel happy when she saw that his tone was relaxed. Lin Pingji continued to ask, I need a guarantee. Li Qinglu frowned and finally snorted. She raised the golden token in her hand and said, I am Princess Yinchuan of the Xixia country. I am under the direct control of the emperor. If you see this token, you will see me. As the saying goes, the emperor does not joke. I have promised in front of so many people. How can I go back on my words and bring shame to the emperor's reputation? Moreover, I can promise you that as long as you tell me everything, I will not only spare your life, but also guarantee you a high position and wealth for the rest of your life. Lin Pingji breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the soles of his feet and said, There is a letter sewn in the soles of my shoes. Li Qinglu waved her hand. Someone had already taken off his shoes and opened them. Then they unstitched the soles of his shoes and found that there was a letter hidden in them. Li Qinglu was about to take the letter when she saw it. But when she thought that it was taken from the soles of the stinky man, she couldn't help but show a trace of disgust. Open the letter and take it away from me. I want to see the emperor. When her subordinates opened the letter, Li Qinglu carefully read it from 3 steps away. When she saw the handwriting on it, she couldn't help but change her expression. She hurriedly said, "Put the letter away. I will go to the palace to see the emperor." It turned out that the letter had a paragraph written on it. "I have settled the people you sent. I've already received the important information they sent. I know very well why you sent them here. In view of your contribution to the emperor, I have reported to the emperor that you will be appointed as soon as possible. The letter of appointment has arrived. I hope you can come to the emperor as soon as possible. Now, I am giving you a painting of a tortoise and a box of dates. I hope you will understand the meaning of returning early and submit to the Song court as soon as possible." Li Qinglu knew that she of it of this. Emperor two of the of it. Lin of Shu of Chun of Lin of his eyes of. Lin to the emperor of Qing Shu of Lin of. Chen's Lin. Xiao thought. Lin of. With as the guards to Lin to two. Lin of Ling, Shu of hand. Lin to Shu Lin. He of Qing Shu to Si to Lin to Tian to the of. Song Qing Shu also smiled slightly. It seemed that Lin Pingji's life was secured, and he did not need to worry anymore. Moreover, everything was going according to plan. It was simply perfect. Li Qinglu entered the palace and reported this to Emperor Li Yuanhao. Li Yuanhao's face darkened. "Come back early." So this is the meaning of the turtle painting and of the dates. Li Qinglu couldn't help but ask, could this be the emperor's plan? Li Yuanhao answered, "I know what I'm doing. A few days ago, I sent someone disguised as Mu Yuqi's messenger to contact Shun Xiaolong of Sichuan. I believe we will know the result in a few days." Song Qing Shu got out of the celestial prison, woke Yunzhong He up, and used the great soul transfer technique to make him forget what happened today. As for why Yunzhong, he could no longer have sex from now on. Let him guess the reason himself. Back at the embassy, Song Qing Shu went to find Yelu Nanxian, telling her that there was progress and that in a few days there should be a result. Yelu Nanxian finally smiled. These days, even the crown prince and the others haven't come here. Most likely they've heard some news. Song Qing Shu put his arm around her waist and smiled. "We don't have to do anything now. We just need to wait." They waited for 3 days. 3 days later, something shocking happened in Spirit State City. The great king of Tiandu, the great king of Yeli, and the left and right generals, the Mu brothers, had committed treason. They were stripped of their military power and imprisoned. That very night, the 2 brothers were executed. No one in Spirit State City could react. The 2 great kings, the Mu brothers who controlled half of the military power, were killed just like that. Yelu Nanxian obviously had the same doubts as Song Qing Shu. Song Qing Shu explained some of the details to her. Not long ago, Li Yuanhao sent his trusted aide disguised as Mu Yuqi's envoy to Sichuan to find the southern Song dynasty's governor Shun Xiaolong. Shun Xiaolong beat Li Yuanhao at his own game and scolded him in front of the envoy, praising the Mu brothers for surrendering to the imperial court and forsaking the darkness for the light. Before he left, he even gave the messenger a farewell dinner. He told the messenger, "Please tell your master to make a decision quickly and not hesitate." When the messenger returned to Western Xia, he immediately reported the situation to Li Yuanhao. Of course, Li Yuanhao was furious. He immediately killed the 2 brothers without giving them any time to react. Therefore, the military power under their command was not able to react in time. Song Qing Shu continued, "But the Mu clan is quite large. In order to prevent them from doing anything, Li Yuanhao moved the 2 brothers' families and the Mu clan's disciples to Jitan Temple. He hinted to the other powers in the imperial court that he would only kill the main culprit and not kill them all. Of course, these people were also hostages to prevent the other Mu clan members from acting rashly." Yelu Nanxian still had some doubts. This is obviously a Song plot. Li Yuanhao is a great leader. How could he be tricked so easily? Song Qing Shu laughed. "You only know one thing but not the other. Do you really think Li Yuanhao didn't know this was a plot? He just needed an excuse to get rid of the Mu brothers, and the song provided him with this excuse. Shangwan Shaoxian was confused and couldn't help but interrupt. What do you mean? Since Li Yuanhao knew this was a plot, why did he still want to get rid of the Mu brothers? Song Qing-shu explained, before coming to Western Xia, I carefully investigated the situation here. As the founding emperor, Li Yuanhao can be considered a man of great talent and strategy. But now he is old, and he has a son who has been the crown prince for many years. Unfortunately, Li Yuanhao is still in good health, and the crown prince can't see any hope of inheriting the throne in a short period of time. Moreover, the crown prince is already an adult and has gathered a large number of his own subordinates. How could Li Yuanhao not be afraid? There are no fathers and sons in the imperial family. Li Yuan and Li Shimin have learned their lesson. How could someone like Li Yuanhao be willing to be imprisoned for the rest of his life like Li Yuan? After thinking about it, the most effective way to solve this problem is to get rid of the crown prince and replace him with a younger son. That way, he will have many more years of buffer time. Although Yilu Nanxian was born into the imperial family, she was not of the same bloodline as the imperial family. She couldn't help but be shocked when she heard such a thing. But on second thought, it was a matter of course. As for Shangwan Shaoxian, her small mouth was wide open. She was still in a daze for a long time. This is also why I've always been confident that you can get through this crisis. Song Qing-shu held Yilu Nanxian's hand and said with a smile, I think Li Yuanhao is only planning to use the wedding to numb the people of the crown prince's clique. He will make his move soon after the wedding. I just made a move ahead of time. It's not easy to make a move on the crown prince. First, we have to deal with his two uncles who hold military power. Yilu Nanxian stuck out her tongue in fear. If it weren't for you, I would really be crippled for the rest of my life. She had thought that marrying someone she didn't like as the crown prince's concubine was painful enough. She didn't expect that there would be something even more painful, and that was to be deposed as the crown prince's concubine. Song Qing-shu gently stroked her hair and said softly, Now you can rest assured. With such a thing happening to his two uncles, I don't think they will be able to get married in a short period of time. Yilu Nanxian had been on tenterhooks all this time, and she could finally put down the huge stone in her heart. Shangwan Shaoxian, who was beside her, also breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, they were no longer the target of that bald king. Song Qing-shu continued, If I'm not wrong, it won't be long before Li Yuanhao makes his move on the crown prince. At that time, you will be completely free. I used to think that the crown prince was a little hateful, but now I suddenly feel that he is a little pitiful. Yilu Nanxian couldn't help but sigh. The people of the imperial family have no choice. Song Qing-shu also sighed. This time, he was able to read Li Yuanhao's mind so clearly. First of all, he had watched so many historical dramas and dramas in his previous life, so he was already very familiar with them. Second of all, after coming to this world, he had secretly controlled the Qing, Jin, and Liao dynasties. His perspective was no different from that of an emperor, so he could understand the so-called scheming of an emperor. Yilu Nanxian suddenly said to the maidservant beside her, Shaoxian, go outside and stand guard. Don't let anyone in. Shangwan Shaoxian curled her lips and muttered as she walked outside. What do you mean, don't let anyone in? Isn't it just to send me away? Miss, you've learned bad things from that big pervert. Yilu Nanxian, Song Qing-shu. After she left, Song Qing-shu looked at the beauty beside him with interest. To be honest, he was also very surprised. It had been so long since he had seen her take the initiative. Noticing the aggressive look in his eyes, Yilu Nanxian blushed and hurriedly explained, Brother Song, don't misunderstand. I just have something to ask you. Song Qing-shu was startled, but seeing the clarity in her eyes, he knew that he had misunderstood. What is it? Brother Song, why do you know so much about what happened in Sichuan? Also, I have a feeling that the Southern Song dynasty's plan to sow discord was all orchestrated by you. Yilu Nanxian's beautiful eyes looked at him calmly, filled with an indescribable expectation. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Of course I was the mastermind of this plan. Have you forgotten? I'm also the Southern Song Dynasty's Prince of Qi. Chapter 1746. Song Qing-shu was silent for a while before finally speaking. You're one of us now. There's no need to hide things from you anymore. In fact, before I rushed back to Liao, I was in Sichuan. Then he briefly explained what happened in Sichuan, of course, omitting the part about his romantic relationship with Ruan Xingzhu. Yilu Nanxian's eyes lit up as she listened. Big brother Song, I thought you were already very capable, but you're even more capable than I thought. Now, not only Liao, but Sichuan is also your territory. Song Qing-shu enjoyed the admiration in her eyes, but he didn't let it get to his head. Right now, I can only say that I have some influence in Sichuan, but I'm still far from having complete control over it. It's the same for Liao. But you've done very well. Before, you were just a nobody, but in a short 2 to 3 years, you've built up such a large territory, and even controlled a real country, a country of heavenly province. Yilu Nanxian was full of praise, but noticing the strange look in his eyes, she suddenly realized something. That's not all, right? Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. I do have some power under my command, but this is related to the safety of countless people. A little carelessness and many people will die without a burial place. So I can't tell you everything for now. I hope you understand. Yilu Nanxian smiled faintly. I'm not an unreasonable person. Of course I know the consequences. The two continued chatting for a while longer before Song Qing-shu said his goodbyes. I still have to go check on the Mu family situation, see if there's anything I need to deal with. This matter was closely related to his marriage, so Yilu Nanxian naturally wouldn't ask him to stay. Song Qing-shu left the embassy, heading to the heavenly prison first. He needed to ensure Lin Pingji's safety. Some time ago, because of Li Qinglu's order, Lin Pingji was moved to a small courtyard in the heavenly prison. This kind of place was usually prepared for those with high status, but Lin Pingji was the one enjoying it. Disguised as a jailer, he sneaked in and found that Lin Pingji's injuries were almost healed. His face was glowing, and he seemed to be fatter than before. I don't know what the Western Xia people are doing. They've been treating me with good food and drinks. Lin Pingji was also puzzled, recounting to Song Qing-shu what happened during this period of time. Song Qing-shu quickly understood. Looks like Li Yuanhao is going to act against the Empress soon. What do you mean? Lin Pingji was confused. Song Qing-shu explained. Although the Mu brothers were a threat to the imperial power, they were, after all, the meritorious ministers of the Xixia Empire. They had fought wars all over the country and made great contributions to the empire. This time, Li Yuanhao killed the Mu brothers in a thunderous manner. Although he said that he was plotting a rebellion, many people in the empire didn't believe that the Mu brothers, who were above tens of thousands of people, would seek refuge with the Song dynasty. Many people will accuse him of killing meritorious officials, Song Qing-shu explained. In order to prevent his reputation from being tarnished, he must find a reason to accuse him of treason. He will immediately depose the Empress, the Mu brothers' younger sister, and then spread the rumor that the Mu brothers knew in advance that their younger sister was deposed, so they held a grudge and planned to rebel. In this way, the Mu brothers' seemingly ridiculous treason will have a reasonable explanation, and Li Yuanhao will have a legitimate reason to get rid of them. As for you, Pingji, Song Qing-shu smiled. Because you are the key to proving the Mu brothers' treason. Even if Li Yuanhao knows what happened, he will still publicly commend you for reporting the treason, and will treat you with courtesy. Lin Pingji was speechless. I was prepared to die on this trip, but I didn't expect there would be such a turn of events. The imperial court is really full of murderous intent, and the rain of blood and wind of foul wind. Compared to this, the conspiracies in Jianghu are not worth mentioning. Song Qing-shu patted him on the shoulder. Don't sigh about this. At least we are lucky this time. You stay here for a while, and Li Yuanhao will probably let you out. Only then did Lin Pingji come back to his senses, but he did look at him with a face full of worship. Brother Song, this time, everything was within your calculations. Even Li Yuanhao's mentality after that you have already guessed 70 to 80%. Even if Zhuge Wuho was alive, he would only be like this. Song Qing-shu hurriedly said. How can I be compared with Marquis Wuho? I'm just standing on the shoulders of a giant. With thousands of years of historical experience, coupled with the fact that he was unprepared, the plan was a great success. But no matter what, Lin Pingji's eyes were full of admiration. Recalling the look in his eyes, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but think. If Emperor Ai of Han or Fu Jian were here and saw such a handsome young man who worshipped them, they would probably do something. Feeling a chill in his heart, Song Qing-shu hurriedly excused himself with the excuse that he couldn't stay here any longer. After coming out of the prison, Song Qing-shu decided to visit Mu Wanqing. The Mu brothers were killed, and, as the family members of the guilty officials, they were more or less implicated. Now that they were moved to Jitan Temple, he didn't know how they were doing. Jitan Temple was located in the west of Lingzhou City. Unlike ordinary temples, it had always been backed by the Xixia royal family. Song Qing-shu quickly found the place, and found that in addition to the monks, there were many guards around the temple. After all, the relatives of the Mu family were imprisoned here, so the security was naturally tighter. However, the imperial palace and the prison were not a problem for Song Qing-shu, let alone this kind of temple. Song Qing-shu quietly sneaked in and smoothly avoided the patrolling guards along the way. But soon, he was in a bit of a dilemma. Because it was a royal temple, Jitan Temple was much bigger than ordinary temples. There were many rooms, and where to find Mu Wanqing in the middle of the night became a problem. After walking around the temple for half a day, Song Qing-shu finally gave up the idea of searching blindly. He directly grabbed a young novice monk and asked, "Which room is Mu Wanqing in? Great hero, please spare my life." The young novice monk hurriedly begged for mercy. "Shut up and answer the question." Song Qing-shu patted his bald head. I don't know who Mu Wanqing is." The young novice monk was about to cry. Only then did Song Qing-shu realize that he was really confused. So he hurriedly corrected himself. "She is the young lady of the Mu family." The young novice monk still looked confused. There are many young ladies in the Mu family. Only then did Song Qing-shu remember that the Mu family was a big family, and there should be dozens of young ladies in the Mu family, if not hundreds. He had to add another condition, the most beautiful one. Mu Wanqing's appearance was one of the best among the many female protagonists in the demigods and semi-devils. He did not believe that there was someone more beautiful than her in the remote Mu family of Xixia, especially when he thought of the Mu brothers. With such genes, it would be strange if they could give birth to a beautiful daughter. Hearing him say so, the young novice monk's eyes suddenly lit up, and he described with delight, "I know this one. She is like a fairy descending to the earth. She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life. But the only shortcoming is that she is a little too cold and has a bad temper." Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face, thinking that the young novice monk looked like a lecherous monk. He did not know how he usually did his homework. "Yes, that's her. Where is she? Take me there." Although he was complaining in his heart, Song Qing-shu still breathed a sigh of relief. Beautiful, cold, and had a bad temper. Wasn't this talking about Mu Wanqing? It should be known that she would only act like a soft girl in front of him, but in front of others, she was a witch who would kill people with poison arrows at the slightest provocation. Okay, the young novice monk looked excited, making Song Qing-shu wonder if he had planned to go there to peep at the beautiful woman. He brought Song Qing-shu all the way to a quiet and secluded courtyard at the back of the mountain, pointed to the room inside, and said excitedly, "She's in that room, but it seems that she has already fallen asleep." "Do you want me to wake up that female benefactor?" After knocking him out, Song Qing-shu hid him in the bushes in the dark. He still wants to take the opportunity to peep at Sister Wan when she gets up. This lecherous monk is dreaming. Song Qing-shu looked unhappy. If it were not for the fact that he was not the kind of person who regarded human life as worthless, he would have sent the young novice monk to the Western Paradise just now. After avoiding the guards outside the courtyard, Song Qing-shu quietly sneaked into the room. The candles in the room had long been extinguished. Obviously, the owner of the room had already fallen asleep. Thinking of Mu Wanqing's recent coy attitude, Song Qingshu understood that if he wanted to make a breakthrough, he could only take the initiative. Therefore, he deliberately did not make a sound and quietly came to the bedside. Suddenly, he smelled a refreshing fragrance, causing him to involuntarily become restless. Sister Wan, Sister Wan? Song Qingshu gently shook the shoulder of the beautiful woman beside him, intending to give her a surprise. Unexpectedly, the other party let out a soft moan, and then a soft and hot body directly pressed against him. Song Qingshu only felt a warm and fragrant jade in his arms. Happiness came so suddenly that he didn't know how to react for a moment. Should he first be reserved and pretend to be generous, or should he just go with the flow and give in halfway? While he was hesitating, she had already wrapped herself around his body like a beautiful snake. Her entire body was soft and bouncy, coupled with the heart-palpitating heat and refreshing fragrance. Even an enlightened monk would not be able to resist. Little Sister Wan, today you... Song Qingshu quickly swallowed back his words because he realized that she must be forcefully suppressing the shyness in her heart by not saying anything on purpose. If he exposed all of this, she would most likely lose all benefits due to her shyness. To be honest, Sister One usually had a slim and delicate figure, but he didn't expect her to have so much material under her clothes. Why are they so much fuller than usual? After a while, Song Qingshu finally realized that something was wrong. An absurd thought suddenly flashed through his mind, and he hurriedly pushed away the woman who was pressing against him. With the help of the faint moonlight shining in through the window, he finally saw the other party's appearance clearly. Her face was exceptionally beautiful, with a pink face and bright eyes, thin eyebrows and a wide forehead, moist red lips, and every part of her was incomparably seductive. She was indeed 60 to 70% similar to Mu Wanqing, so much so that he didn't recognize the difference at first glance. But now that he looked carefully, he realized that they were merely similar, because she was none other than Azura Blade Qin Hongmian. At this moment, Qin Hongmian's gown was half undone, and she was nestled in his arms. What a lively and alluring appearance. Song Qingshu was instantly scared out of his wits, and he pushed her away as if he was scalded by boiling water. What kind of joke was this? This was different from Wan Xingzhu and Azi. Qin Hongmian and Mu Wanqing were genuine mother-daughter relationships. Wait, that might not necessarily be the case. However, Song Qingshu hurriedly came back to his senses. What nonsense was he thinking about? Although he didn't think of himself as a gentleman, he was definitely not a filthy person without a bottom line. How could he endure such a scene? Chapter 1747. Song Qingshu was cursing the young novice monk to death. If he hadn't misled him, he wouldn't have subconsciously thought that the woman in this room was Mu Wanqing. Now that he thought about it, he had just described the most beautiful Miss Mu to him, but he actually thought that it was Qin Hongmian. Not to mention whether Qin Hongmian was the Miss Mu. In terms of appearance, could she be more beautiful than Mu Wanqing? It seemed that the young novice monk preferred mature and beautiful women. Could it be that this was a common problem for young men? Bah, that was a young novice monk. Why was he thinking about men's matters instead of eating vegetarian and praying to Buddha? However, Song Qingshu had wrongly blamed the young novice monk. The Buddhism that spread in Xixia was not the more popular Zen Buddhism in the Central Plains, but it was closer to the Tibetan esoteric Buddhism. When it came to matters between men and women, it didn't have as many rules and regulations as the Shaolin Temple. Don't go. Song Qingshu suddenly stopped. His wrist had been grabbed by a pair of soft hands. Qin Hongmian's voice was so sweet that it was greasy. Where was the usual coldness and fiery temper? Song Qingshu suddenly stopped. It wasn't that he was really persuaded, but he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He was scared out of his wits just now and subconsciously wanted to leave this awkward place. So he didn't notice that Qin Hongmian's eyes were blurry and her whole body was soaked in sweat. Her whole body was emitting an amazing heat and fragrance. Her legs were tightly clamped together, and she was twisting from time to time. drugged with aphrodisiac? Song Qing-shu sat down by the bed and reached out to open her eyes. He observed her pupils and then felt her pulse. His face quickly darkened, because he was sure that Qin Homian had been drugged. At this moment, the soft beauty once again wrapped around his body. Her fiery red lips kissed him, as if looking for something to fill the emptiness in her. Madam, Song Qing-shu tried to wake her up again. Unfortunately, the only response he got was the other party's increasingly rapid breathing. Song Qing-shu no longer hesitated. He reached out and sealed several acupuncture points on her body. The restless little wild cat finally calmed down, but her chest was still rising and falling rapidly. Song Qing-shu knew the nature of the aphrodisiacs in this world. If the effects of the aphrodisiac were not completely released, it would be a huge hidden danger if it remained in a woman's body. At that time, even if she was a pure and clean girl, she would still become a woman of unrestrained desire. If Song Qing-shu, who had just come to this world, encountered this situation, he would probably reluctantly use his body to detoxify her. In any case, many young heroes in wuxia novels loved to do this kind of thing. However, the current him possessed an exceedingly formidable ability, so how could he be so despicable? Moreover, the other party was Mu Wanqing's mother. After making her sit cross-legged on the bed, Song Qing-shu's entire body turned into a shadow and continuously wandered around her. He used his inner energy to open up all the acupuncture points on her body, using this to draw out the effects of the aphrodisiac in her body. Song Qing-shu was currently most proficient in controlling the yin and yang qi. Although he didn't know what aphrodisiac Qin Homian was drugged with, he understood the principle behind it. The current her was obviously having more yin than yang, and the yin and yang in her body were extremely out of balance. That was why she was so desperate for a man's comfort. The blissful zen that he originally cultivated was already an expert in this area. Coupled with the solitary yang finger, it was even more effective. After working like this for an hour, Qin Homian finally let out an unsuppressible moan, and it could finally be considered a success. Song Qing-shu was also so tired that his mouth and tongue were parched. Actually, the consumption of his inner energy was a small matter. The main thing was that the lively scene before him was really too much of a test of his willpower. At this moment, Qin Homian looked as if she had just been fished out of the water. The thin silk nightgown on her body had long been soaked through by her sweat, tightly sticking to her well-rounded skin. She looked even more alluring than when she was naked. After reciting the heart-cleansing kindness mantra a few times in his heart, Song Qing-shu hurriedly helped her to sleep. Then, he brought the blanket over her, not daring to look at her during the entire process. It wasn't that he didn't want to look, but he couldn't. Especially when he thought of the other party's identity, it was really too taboo. At the same time, a strange thought suddenly welled up in Song Qing-shu's mind. Other than his own charm, could it be related to the solitary yang finger that caused Duan Zhengquan's lovers to be unable to forget him for the rest of their lives? After all, this thing was like a divine weapon for women. Just now, when he poked those ordinary acupuncture points on Qin Homian's body, she was already moaning and panicking. If he were to use it on her, thank you. At this moment, Qin Homian's voice faintly sounded. In an instant, Song Qing-shu woke up from his wild imagination. He silently cursed his sins and hurriedly replied, "Madam, do you feel better now?" Qin Homian's heart skipped a beat. Thinking about the situation just now, she felt that this sentence sounded strange. However, she still nodded. Yes, much better. At this moment, she didn't have any of the usual Shura Blade's murderous aura. Her entire body was as red as a cooked prawn. It was unknown whether it was because of the effects of the medicine or because she was shy. Seeing her shy appearance and the flirtatious expression that was revealed in that instant between her brows, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He silently cursed his sins again and hurriedly changed the topic. That's right, why was Madame poisoned? I don't know either. Qin Homian bit her lip and her eyes finally revealed the usual murderous aura of the Shura blade. One had to know that she was actually conscious just now, but she could no longer control her body and could only follow her body's instincts. Thus, when she saw that Song Qing-shu had arrived, the torment in her heart was also incomparable. If it was any other man, she could just kill him afterward. However, she couldn't defeat the man in front of her. Even if she could defeat him, could she really kill him? What if her daughter turned against her and became enemies? Thinking that he was her daughter's future husband, Qin Homian's heart was in her throat just now. She was afraid that something irreversible would really happen. If that happened, she would really be better off dead. However, rationality was one thing, and the body's instinctive reaction was another. Feeling that she was taking the initiative to seduce him, Qin Homian was so ashamed and angry that she was about to faint. However, she just couldn't control her body. Just like that, walking on the edge of the cliff of morality and desire, Qin Homian was about to collapse. In the end, she even gave up resisting. Fortunately, he actually didn't touch her. Instead, he used his unfathomable martial arts to dispel the love poison in her body. When she thought of what had happened earlier, Qin Homian felt bashful, but her impression of Song Qing-shu was very good. She had seen too many so-called gentlemen's disgusting appearances behind the scenes. The other party was so young, yet he had such self-control. He was truly more of a gentleman than a gentleman. Her daughter's taste in men was indeed much better than hers. When she thought of the scene where she hugged him and kept calling him Duan Lang, Qin Homian's tender and alluring face became even redder. "That's right, why are you here?" In order to hide the embarrassment in her heart, Qin Homian struggled to sit up. She pulled the blanket to cover her chest with one hand and used the other to tuck the hair on her face that was wet with sweat behind her ear. "I heard that something happened to the Mu family. The Mu family's family members were moved here, so I came to take a look. I was originally going to look for little sister Wan, but the stinking brat who showed me the way pointed the wrong way, causing me to accidentally barge into Madam's room." Song Qing-shu explained with an awkward expression. A rare smile appeared on Qin Homian's face. "Thank goodness you came. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to protect my reputation today." She was usually serious in speech and manner, and her personality was strict and fiery. At this moment, the smile she revealed was like the first thaw of ice and snow. Coupled with her peach blossom-like appearance, it was all the more pleasing to the eye. Song Qing-shu was a little dazed. Qin Homian noticed his gaze. If it was any other day, she would have yelled at him, but now, for some reason, she suddenly felt a little flustered. The two of them sank into silence, and a charming atmosphere seemed to gradually rise in the room. However, Song Qing-shu's expression suddenly changed. "Madam, someone is coming. Who is it? Is it a monk from the temple?" Qin Homian's beautiful expression also changed slightly. One had to know that the other party's motive for coming to her boudoir in the middle of the night, coupled with the fact that they had just been drugged, was self-evident. As for who was most likely to have drugged them, it was obvious that the monk in charge of their meals was the most suspicious. These people from Jiatan Temple shouldn't be so daring. Song Qing-shu unconsciously shook his head, but when he thought of that lecherous little monk, he was not so sure. As the footsteps grew closer, Song Qing-shu frowned. He could tell that it was not just one person, but several. After drugging Qin Homian, several strong men had come. Song Qing-shu could not help but feel a trace of killing intent. "Has everything been arranged?" Those people stopped outside the door, and a low voice sounded. "Everything has been arranged. We have added something to Madame Mu's water." Looking at the time, this should be the time when the effects of the drug are at its strongest. Just enjoy it. Another voice was filled with flattery. This matter has been handled very well. Afterwards, you will not be lacking in benefits." The low voice was mixed with a few traces of excitement. "In addition, have those unrelated people stay away. I don't want them to hear anything they shouldn't. This lowly one understands. This lowly one understands. Then we will not disturb your pleasure." After the flattering voice finished speaking, the sound of distant footsteps could be heard. It was clear that the others had already left. Song Qing-shu inwardly sneered. I want to see just who you are. Qin Hongyan suddenly pulled on his sleeve and made a shushing gesture. Let's observe the situation first. Song Qingshu nodded. There was no harm in being careful. Who knew which deity had come? Hearing the other party push open the door, Qin Hongyan hurriedly said, "Come hide on the bed." Song Qingshu was startled and said with some embarrassment, "That's not very good." But even though he said that, his body still turned over and jumped onto the bed. Qin Hongyan directly handed over the other half of the blanket. Hide it first, quickly. Chapter 1748. The moment she entered the blankets, a wave of warmth greeted her, mixed with a delicate fragrance that was like musk and orchid, causing Song Qingshu to lose focus for a moment. Qin Hongyan clearly realized that something was wrong and subconsciously shrunk her body towards the bed, afraid that there would be any skin contact between the two. But soon, the two of them could not care about this because the footsteps of the person who entered were getting closer and closer, accompanied by extremely heavy breathing. Qin Hongyan hurriedly closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. Shouldn't you be tossing and turning now? That person noticed Qin Hongyan's current quiet state and muttered to himself in confusion. Could it be that the medicine hasn't taken effect yet? Qin Hongyan's body stiffened all of a sudden. It was obvious that her heart was filled with rage and fear. Song Qingshu, who was at the side, sensed her nervousness. He patted her hand lightly and said via secret voice sending, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Hearing his words, Qin Hongyan suddenly relaxed. A thought flashed through her mind. If only Duan Lang was this considerate to me. But she quickly expelled this undesirable emotion from her mind. She was really laughable, still thinking about that heartless man after so many years. The footsteps got closer and closer, finally stopping by the bed. Then, the sound of saliva being swallowed could be heard, and it was especially obvious in the silent room. "Beauty, I'm here." Feeling that the other party seemed to be squatting down and his face getting closer and closer to her, Qin Hongyan, who had a fiery temper to begin with, could no longer hold back and directly raised her hand to slap the other party's face. The other party exclaimed in surprise, but he reacted quickly and grabbed the other party's wrist. "Since you're still awake, that's good. Otherwise, it'll be boring to play without knowing anything." Seeing the other party's appearance clearly, Qin Hongyan's entire body trembled, and she was momentarily dazed. It was in this instant that the other party had already stretched out his hands and pressed on her pulse, preventing her from displaying her martial arts skills. Immediately after, the other party flipped over and pressed her onto the bed with his heavy body, his foul mouth moving towards her face. Qin Hongyan tried to resist with all her might, but unfortunately, being pressed down by the other party's body weight, coupled with the fact that her pulse was being controlled, it was completely useless. Instead, the twisting of her body stimulated the other party's desire even more. TSK, such a supple body. Mu Yuqi, that bastard, is really wasting such a treasure. That person chuckled. He was just about to take another step forward when his vision suddenly darkened, and then he fell to the ground. "Is Madam all right?" Song Qingshu went over to help Qin Hongyan up. I'm fine." Qin Hongyan sat up with a lingering fear in her heart. She gently leaned against the headboard of the bed. She suddenly thought of something and turned her head to look at the ground beside her. "He's not dead, is he?" Song Qingshu was stunned. "No, I just knocked him out. Moreover, such a lowly person deserves to die. So why is Madam worried about him?" He thought that the other party was Duan Zhengshun, but after careful observation, although he was quite tall, there was still a big gap between him and Duan Zhengshun. Moreover, he was also much older than Duan Zhengshun. Coupled with his distinctive Mediterranean hairstyle, he was definitely a native of Xixia. Why was Qin Hongyan so nervous? It couldn't be her lover, right? Noticing the strange look in the other party's eyes, Qin Hongyan's face reddened. She knew that he had misunderstood and glared at him angrily. "What are you thinking?" "I'm worried because of his identity." "Identity?" Sensing the other party's anger, Song Qingshu secretly smacked his lips. Sure enough, she had a lively temper. Such a little pepper couldn't be easily provoked. Fortunately, Sister Wan's temperament was much softer than hers. He's the current emperor of Xixia, Li Yuanhao. Qin Hongmian snorted in annoyance as she tidied up her somewhat disheveled clothes. We're in trouble this time. Li Yuanhao? Song Qingshu was stunned. He had never expected that this perverted thief, who came to steal a woman in the middle of the night, would actually be the emperor who had countless beauties in his harem. Wait, could it be that Li Yuanhao had gotten rid of the Mu brothers in order to obtain Qin Hongmian? Isn't this a bit too much of a joke? After I was brought back from Dali by Mu Yuqi, I once followed him into the palace to visit the emperor and the empress. At that time, I noticed that the way he looked at me was a little strange. However, I didn't think too much about it, and thought that I was just being paranoid. I didn't expect. Qin Hongmian bit her lip, her eyes full of anger. However, it was mixed with more hesitation and weakness. If she had encountered such a situation on a normal day, she would have directly raised her sword and killed the other party. However, the other party was the ruler of a country, the current emperor. Unlike people like Song Qingshu, who came from the later generations, the people of this world naturally had a kind of reverence for imperial power. Even if she was the Azura Blade of Jianghu, when faced with the emperor's invasion, she was at a loss for what to do and didn't know how to deal with it. Directly kill him? Are you kidding me? Let him go and pretend that nothing had happened? But it was too aggrieving. No matter how she thought about it, she still couldn't think of what to do. In the end, even her voice became a little weaker. Why don't we let him go? Let him go. Song Qingshu smiled. After we let him go, we'll let him come back to settle the score. If we don't let him go, should we kill him? That will lead to a terrible disaster. Qin Hongmian's beautiful face turned pale. Song Qingshu secretly shook his head. No matter how brave and fierce these people of Jianghu were on normal days, they would become so weak and pitiful in the face of a real struggle. Of course we can't kill him. Let me think about it first. Originally, he thought that he might as well take advantage of this opportunity to kill Li Yuanhao and replace him. In any case, it wasn't the first time that he had done something like disguising himself. However, he dispelled this tempting idea in the end, because this time was different from the past. In the past, he more or less had some resources in that country. But now, he had no foundation in Xixia at all. Moreover, he was completely unfamiliar with the situation in the imperial court of Xixia. And he was even more unfamiliar with Li Yuanhao's behavior and habits. If he rashly pretended to be Li Yuanhao, he would most likely be seen through. It was a small matter if his disguise was seen through. But if it led people to suspect the situation in the Qin Kingdom, the Jin Kingdom, and Liao Kingdom, then the loss would really outweigh the gain. But if we let him go, we can't keep today's matter under wraps. Qin Hongmian also had an awkward expression on her face. Song Qingshu comforted her. Don't worry, I have a way. But later, no matter what Madam hears or sees, you must not get excited and don't make sound. Qin Hongmian didn't understand, but she still nodded. She was very curious as to what the other party would do. Then, under the shocked gaze of the other party, Li Yuanhao woke up. Li Yuanhao rubbed his eyes. Before he could regain his senses, he saw two deep circles of black holes. An illusory voice sounded in his ears. You entered the room, lifted Madame Mu's quilt, and ruthlessly pressed her under your body. She tried to resist, but how can a woman's strength compare to a man's? The more she resisted, the more excited you became, especially when you touched her full and plump body. To the side, Qin Hongmian raised her eyebrows. She was about to explode, but she noticed that the two's current state was somewhat abnormal. So, she curbed her suspicions and decided to observe the situation first. But when she heard the words that came out of Song Qingshu's mouth, it was even more seductive than the obscene lyrics and songs of the brothel. It didn't take long for her to blush. Song Qingshu made up everything that happened after Li Yuanhao fainted. Moreover, he made it so vivid that Li Yuanhao was soon engrossed in it. He hugged a stool and madly attacked. Thank you, teacher Bai. Thank you, 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 teacher by thank you, 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 thank you. By now, Li Yuanhao had already been successfully hypnotized and had fallen into an illusion created by those words. This wasn't the first time that Song Qing-shu had done something like this. Previously in the Jin Kingdom and Liao, he had actually tried it on a small scale. The hailing king, Wan Yinliang, was the greatest victim. Not long after, with a low roar, Li Yuanhao finally recovered. Song Qing-shu shook his head. Li Yuanhao could be considered a hero of his generation, but unfortunately, time and tide wait for no man. He still had the will, but not the strength. After pressing on his sleeping acupuncture point, Song Qing-shu said to Qin Hongyan, "It's all good now. He thinks that he has already obtained you. When the time comes, madam, remember not to spill the beans. Just pretend that what happened tonight was as I just described." Qin Hongyan's face immediately turned red. This was because in his description, Li Yuanhao had played himself over and over again. Just thinking about the details made her unable to bear it. This boy was so young. How could he be like this? Qin Hongyan suddenly felt that if her pure and innocent daughter followed him, wouldn't she be played to death by him in the future? "Madam, did you hear me clearly?" Seeing that she pursed her lips and didn't speak, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but ask. "And I understand." Although Qin Hongyan was a little angry in her heart, she also knew that this matter was of great importance. If she wasn't careful, she would face the calamity of having her entire family wiped out. Although she felt a little disgusted, she could only cooperate. "In order to prevent any accidents from happening when he wakes up tomorrow, I will stay here tonight to accompany madam," Song Qing-shu said with a straight face. It had to be known that the soul-shifting technique wasn't omnipotent. When Li Yuanhao woke up the next day, it would be the most dangerous time. If he discovered any flaws, there was no guarantee that he would remember what really happened tonight. Hearing that he would accompany her tonight, Qin Hongyan's heart skipped a beat. However, she quickly understood that she was thinking too much. She nodded and said, "Thank you. It's no trouble at all." Song Qing-shu faintly smiled. Then he went over to lift Li Yuanhao up and threw him behind the screen. Then he went to check if the doors and windows were locked properly. All right, what kind of martial art was that? Qin Hongyan suddenly recalled the miraculous performance just now and couldn't help but be curious. That's the soul-shifting technique from the 9-in manual. It can control a person's mind to a certain extent. Song Qing-shu answered. Soul-shifting technique? As a person of the pugilistic world, Qin Hongyan had naturally heard of some legends about this martial art. I heard that people who are under this martial art will listen to the words of the person who cast it. It's not that exaggerated. Actually, there are still many restrictions. Song Qing-shu explained. Chapter 1749. Song Qing-shu was startled and instinctively nodded. That is indeed the case. Then, for some reason, he added, and it can make you completely forget what happened before. Qin Hongyan's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know why her face felt hot. She hurriedly said, "Don't aim your eyes at me." Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "Madam is worrying too much. You are younger sister Wan's mother. Why would I offend madam?" Although he said this, he couldn't help but start imagining some scenes in his mind. His heart involuntarily sped up. He hurriedly suppressed his wicked thoughts and silently chanted Ba. The two of them sank into an awkward silence. After a while, Chin Homyan suddenly said, "I don't feel well. I want to take a bath." She regretted it as soon as she spoke. In reality, she only wanted to find a topic to break the awkwardness in the room, but she didn't know what to say. In addition, after being drugged, her entire body was sticky and uncomfortable. All she could think about was taking a bath. Thus, she unconsciously said this. Song Ching-shu was startled. He clearly felt that these words were a bit sudden. Just as he was thinking about how to respond, she quickly waved her hand and said, "I was just saying it casually. How can you take a bath in this situation?" If it were any other time, she could just call a servant to prepare water and bring it over. But now that the emperor was unconscious, how could she dare to call someone in? Song Qingshu thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Madam, don't worry. There's a way to take a bath." Qin Hongyan felt that it was inappropriate to discuss this with him, but the feeling of her wet clothes sticking to her skin was too uncomfortable. "When I was scouting the surroundings, I found a pool on the mountain behind Jiatan Temple. That place is usually very remote. Now that it's the middle of the night, no one will go there. Madam can rest assured and freshen up there," Song Qingshu explained. "But there are definitely many of Li Yuanhao's personal guards in the surroundings. If you go out now, won't they discover that something has happened here?" Qin Hongyan was a bit tempted, but reason still told her that this was too risky. Song Qingshu smiled and said, "Don't worry, madam. Although Li Yuanhao's guards are experts, they are nothing in my eyes. How hard would it be to hide from them?" Only now did Qin Hongyan recall the reputation of this person in the Jianghu. However, she still blushed and said, "But it's very difficult for me to leave silently with my martial arts." Although she had the nickname of Azura Blade, she was at most a third-rate master in Jianghu. She might not even be able to handle one of Li Yuanhao's guards. Song Qingshu smiled. "I'll take you out. Madam, please pack your clothes first." Qin Hongyan opened her mouth and instinctively wanted to refuse, but in the end, she couldn't overcome the discomfort in her body. In the end, she nodded imperceptibly and went inside to pack her clothes. Not long after, she came out with a small cloth bag. Glancing at Li Yuanhao on the ground, Qin Hongyan had a conflicted expression. "What about him?" Song Qingshu answered, "Don't worry, madam. He has been hit by my unique acupoint sealing technique. Unless I undo it for him, he won't wake up. As for his subordinates, they won't be so insensible as to come and disturb his elegant mood." Hearing the word elegant mood, Qin Hongyan looked at him reproachfully. She clearly understood what he was referring to. If Song Qingshu hadn't appeared earlier, Li Yuanhao's elegant mood would probably be very high right now. "That's right. Do you also know solitary yang finger?" Qin Hongyan asked in order to conceal the awkwardness in her heart. "That's right." Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise. He didn't expect that although her martial arts weren't that great, her eyesight was pretty good. "How did madam see through it? When you healed me just now." Qin Hongyan suddenly paused, and her voice instantly became softer. That feeling was very familiar. Seeing her suddenly reveal a coquettish posture, Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. That bastard Duan Zhengchun really used solitary yang finger in the bedroom. Qin Hongyan was obviously also very embarrassed. She hurriedly said, "Let's go." Song Qingshu nodded. He opened the window a sliver and carefully observed the surrounding environment. Perhaps it was because Li Yuanhao had ordered his subordinates to stay away, so the surrounding security wasn't very tight. It was very easy to find an opportunity to leave. "Madam, later I want to fly out with you in my arms." Song Qingshu called Qin Hongyan over to his side and looked at her inquiringly. Qin Hongyan's delicate brows furrowed slightly. Normally, she naturally wouldn't allow a man to come close to her, but the other had just helped her dispel the poison of love. There was already skin contact, and when she thought about the other's relationship with her, she finally nodded. After obtaining permission, Song Qingshu gently held her waist. Her hands were full and soft, completely different from a young girl's slender and supple waist. At this moment, his attention was completely focused on preventing the guards outside from discovering them, so he didn't have any other thoughts. However, this made things difficult for Qin Hongyan. Being held by the man's strong arms, she seemed to be able to feel his masculine and hot aura. She seemed to feel that her body was becoming more and more sticky. Being carried out of the window by the other. Qin Hongyan was just about to remind him that the open window would easily be discovered by the people outside. In the end, before she could say anything, the man beside her casually waved his hand, and the window was gently pushed closed. Qin Hongyan's mouth was wide open, and she couldn't say anything for a long time. She really admired his skill to the point of prostrating herself before him, especially when he brought her out of the Jietan Temple's perimeter with a few leaps. It made her feel as if she was riding on the clouds. So it turns out that practicing Qin Gong to the peak is actually so magical. Qin Hongyan still hadn't come back to her senses when she realized that she had already stopped in front of a clear pool of water. Not far from the pool was a small waterfall flowing down. It was obvious that the impact of this small waterfall had formed this pool of water. "We're already here." Song Qing-shu let go of her and naturally retreated to the side. "I'll keep watch outside." "Madam, hurry up." Qin Hongyan opened her mouth. This was a man and a woman alone in the wilderness. She thought to herself, what if you peek? However, she didn't say this out loud, because after this period of interaction, she believed that the other wouldn't do such a despicable thing. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Qin Hongyan bowed slightly and hid behind a large rock. She rustled as she began to change her clothes. At the same time, she felt strange in her heart. In a sense, the other party was clearly her junior, but why was it that every time she saw him, it was difficult for her to calm down? Instead, she often felt helpless? Could it be that he was only a few years younger than her? So, compared to a junior, he was more like a peer the same age? As the object of Qin Hongyan's current dilemma, not only did Song Qing-shu turn his back to her, but he also kept a distance of several dozen feet away. He even deliberately shut off a portion of his spiritual sense. Otherwise, with his current martial arts skills, he would be able to clearly hear Qin Hongyan's every move. Even if he couldn't see it, he would be able to completely outline it in his mind. Although he didn't think of himself as a gentleman, he believed that he still had a bottom line. Although he would sometimes have some fantasies in his mind that was only determined by a man's genes, it didn't mean that he would put it into action. As the saying went, saints didn't talk about their hearts, and no one was perfect when it came to their hearts. Actually, Song Qing-shu was also a little depressed. He had clearly come to have a tryst with Mu Wanqing today, but in the end, he ended up in such a situation. He could see, but he couldn't. It was really a pain in the ass. While he was complaining, his heart suddenly moved. He turned around and grabbed something. When he opened his hand to take a look, he discovered that it was a small stone. He was stunned. He had originally thought that someone had planned to sneak attack him, but this stone didn't contain much strength at all. It really didn't seem like it was used for a sneak attack. Qing-shu, at this moment, a suppressed voice came from not far away. Song Qing-shu looked in the direction of the voice and saw Qin Hongyan waving at him in the water. "What's going on?" Song Qing-shu was dumbfounded. At this moment, the other party only had her head above the water surface, but it was obvious that she wasn't wearing any clothes underwater. Why was she calling him over at this time? Could it be some drama where Pan Jinlian called uncle to drink this cup of tea? The thought flashed in his mind, and Song Qing-shu immediately denied this guess. After all, Qin Hongyan's temperament didn't seem like that kind of woman. While he was in a dilemma, the other party saw that he didn't move at all. She immediately became anxious and threw another stone over. Although her martial arts weren't great, Mu Wanqing's poison sleeve dart was taught by her. Therefore, her hidden weapon skills were superior, and her accuracy in throwing stones was unquestionable. After throwing the stone, she continued to wave at him and at the same time made a shushing gesture. Feeling her anxiety, Song Qing-shu realized that he might have been thinking wrongly. It was most likely that something had happened to her, so he hurriedly used his Qin Gong to go over. Because of her reminder, he had also deliberately concealed his tracks at this distance of more than 100 feet. "What happened, madam?" Song Qing-shu asked hurriedly. Qin Hongyan pointed above. "There's someone there." Song Qing-shu looked in the direction of her finger and saw that there were actually two figures above the waterfall. They clearly hadn't been there just now. They suddenly appeared above. "I don't know who they are, so I don't dare to act blindly without thinking." Qin Hongyan was a little anxious. At such a distance, she couldn't clearly see whether the other party was a man or a woman. If it was a man, wouldn't her reputation be ruined if they saw her? In addition, she had another worry. If the other party was Li Yuanhao's imperial bodyguard, then it would be even more troublesome. Therefore, she didn't dare to make any big movements for fear of attracting the attention of the people above. Chapter 1750. He had interacted with Ding Chunxiu in Yunnan's 5 Poison sect before. Later on, Ding Chunxiu had hired him as a guest of the stickler department, and he was Zi's master, Constellation Immortal Ding Chunxiu. Song Qing-shu hadn't seen him for a long time. He didn't expect to see him in Western Xia. But then again, it made sense. The Sea of Constellations was in the west, and he had seen Ding Chunxiu with Duan Yanqing at 5 Poison sect. He seemed to have heard that Ding Chunxiu had joined Class 1 Hall. Just who is this woman? Song Qing-shu looked at the woman's graceful figure and really couldn't remember who this person was. What surprised him even more was that Ding Chunxiu's attitude in front of her seemed to be somewhat reserved, as if she was extremely respectful. Because he and Qin Hongyan were at the pool below the waterfall, the mist and the surrounding plants made it difficult for them to be discovered. Ding Chunxiu and Ding Chunxiu stood at a higher place and were more conspicuous. In the end, they were seen by Qin Hongyan, who had a lower level of martial arts. "They're coming down." Qin Hongyan covered her mouth and gasped. It turned out that the two figures were flying down from the waterfall. Even though the waterfall wasn't very high, it was clear that their lightness skills were high to be able to fly down with such ease. "Let's hide for a while." If it was just Song Qing-shu alone, there was no need to hide. However, there was still Qin Hongyan in the water without any clothes on. If they really clashed later, it was hard to guarantee that Ding Chunxiu wouldn't see something he shouldn't. And if the other party spread the news of them being together, it was hard to guarantee that it wouldn't become a huge scandal. After all, the ability of people to add fuel to the fire and spread gossip was equally exaggerated, regardless of whether it was ancient or modern people. Fortunately, Qin Hongyan had chosen to bathe behind a large rock in order to hide. With this rock as a cover, they wouldn't be discovered by the two coming down. Song Qing-shu hid behind the rock, while Qin Hongyan sank into the water, only her head above the surface. The two of them were only 1 or 2 meters apart. "Just don't make a sound. I've used my true energy to isolate our auras. They won't be able to discover us." Song Qing-shu turned around to comfort Qin Hongyan. In the end, he almost had a nosebleed. Although the water in the pool was very clear and wouldn't be seen in the dark, Song Qing-shu's eyesight was very powerful. As long as there was a glimmer of light, he could see things in the dark as if it was daytime. At this moment, Qin Hongyan instinctively covered her chest with her hands, but all she could see was snow white. How could her arms block it? Song Qing-shu hurriedly averted his gaze and once again chanted the heart-cleansing kindness mantra in his heart. Sensing his unusual movements, Qin Hongyan turned her head with a puzzled expression. However, she didn't have good eyesight and couldn't see his current expression clearly. "Is that medicine of yours really effective?" Suddenly, a woman's voice came from not far away. Her voice was very gentle and sweet. Song Qing-shu was taken aback and stretched out his head to look in that direction. He saw that the woman was dressed entirely in white, but unfortunately her face was covered by an opaque white silk, so he could not see her face clearly. Even so, the exposed features were very beautiful, and her figure was slender and graceful. Under the mountain breeze, her skirt fluttered, and she really looked like a fairy. Whether it's her voice or her figure, this woman doesn't look very old. But why is her cultivation so profound? Song Qing-shu counted the women he knew. Other than the young girl, Qing, who was like a sword immortal, the only other person who could reach this level of cultivation at such a young age was probably Dongfang Muxue. Who was this woman in front of him? How could she cultivate her martial arts to such a level? Hee, Ding Chunxiu chuckled. The yin-yang harmony powder can turn a virgin into a slut. How could it be ineffective? Song Qing-shu was startled. From what they were saying, it seemed that the poison Qin Hongyan was poisoned with was provided by the poison grandmaster, Ding Chunxiu. No wonder it was so overbearing. Wait, why did the name yin-yang harmony powder sound so familiar? Song Qing-shu finally remembered. Back then, Mu Wanqing seemed to have also been poisoned with this kind of poison. He didn't expect that it would be Qin Hongyan's turn this time. This mother and daughter pair really had a troubled life. He subconsciously glanced at the woman beside him and discovered that her phoenix-like eyes were filled with killing intent. Clearly, she had also understood. He hurriedly transmitted his voice over. "Madam, please don't be impatient. Let's listen to what's going on first before we decide." What kind of joke was this? Either of the two people outside could take care of Qin Hongyan with a single finger. Would she be sending herself to her death if she went out? Hearing his words, Qin Hongyan nodded helplessly. I've secretly observed that Qin Hongyan once. Although she's a little hot-tempered, it can't be denied that she's a stunning beauty. Li Yuanhao has gotten lucky tonight, the veiled woman said with a faint smile. Ding Chunxiu waved the carefree fan in his hand and smiled flatteringly. In front of you, who would dare to be called a stunning beauty? The veiled woman snorted. Your flattery skills aren't very good. I still have self-awareness. Although I wasn't afraid when I was young now. Sigh, since ancient times, beauties are like famous generals. They're not allowed to see the world until their hair turns white. Ding Chunxiu hurriedly said, if you don't believe me, you can ask anyone on the street. Let's see who doesn't say that you're only 17 or 18 years old. The veiled woman laughed and scolded him. It's the middle of the night. There's no one on the street. You sure know how to play tricks, you old thing. At that moment, Song Qing-shu was in a state of confusion in the wind. Based on what she said, the woman was actually very old, and she wasn't just an ordinary old woman. He had thought that she was a young girl just now. It was really difficult to judge the age of a woman in a martial arts world. Song Qing-shu could not help but remember a novel he had read before. Empress Yin Zhuyuyin of Yin Weed faction was clearly an old woman in her 80s, but she looked like a sister to Bayan. She was just a young girl in her teens or 20s. Oh my God, even if it's a martial arts world, we can't ignore science. Song Qing-shu was a person who came from a mature scientific system in the future. It was very difficult for him to understand this phenomenon that was against science. However, when he thought about the qi in this world and the martial arts that allowed people to fly in the sky and travel underground, he felt that it was very difficult to explain using science, and he felt slightly at ease. Right now, he was even more curious about the veiled woman's identity. Based on the various information he gathered from their conversation, this woman's identity was obvious. She was one of the 3 legends of Xiaoyao faction, goddess Li Qiushui. When he thought about how she was Li Qingluo's mother and could be considered his mother-in-law to a certain extent, Song Qing-shu wondered if he should go out and greet her. However, he could predict that it would most likely cause a fight. After all, Li Qingluo's true identity was Madame Wang, not Lady Song. What's going on with me recently? Why do I keep running into these mothers-in-law? Glancing at Qin Hongyan beside him, Song Qing-shu's expression was a little strange. Should he go to the streets to have his fortune read and change his luck? That Li Yuanhao doesn't have long to live, right? Ding Chunxiu, who was not far away, suddenly chuckled. When that time comes, the throne will fall into Qian Shun's hands. As soon as these words came out, the 2 people hiding in the dark were shocked. They did not expect to accidentally hear such a big conspiracy. Could it be that these 2 people wanted to kill the king? He's old and feels that his energy is not as good as before. Seeing that I've been the same for decades, he specifically asked me for advice on the art of eternal youth. Li Qiushui's tone had an additional hint of sarcasm. Ding Chunxiu sneered. There's no such thing as an art of eternal youth. It's just because one's martial arts has reached a certain level. That's not necessarily true. Li Qiushui chuckled. The martial arts that your martial uncle has learned are the genuine divine arts of eternal youth. Ding Chunxiu smiled sheepishly. She has cultivated to the appearance of a demon that will never grow up. How can she compare to you? Song Qingshu secretly curled his lips. You people will never know how powerful the attraction of a legal loli is to the gentlemen of the later generations. Hearing the other ridicule his lifelong enemy, Li Qiushui was also quite happy. After chuckling for a while, he then changed the topic. Li Yuanhao is the ruler of a country after all. Since he came to my door, I couldn't refuse him. So I casually taught him a set of martial arts. He treated it like a treasure, but he didn't know it was just a brilliant bedroom technique. Ding Chunxiu also echoed. During this period of time, he showed off his masculinity in bed. He felt as if he had returned to his youth. He thought that it was because he had succeeded in his martial arts, but he didn't know that it was burning up what little energy he had left. This is the only way he can completely separate himself from me. When Qian Shun inherits the throne, no one will be able to find any excuses, Li Qiushui continued. But I don't have that much patience to wait, so I found someone to indirectly remind him of the beautiful widow of the Mu family. Qin Hongyan is naturally seductive, and coupled with the yin-yang harmony powder, I'm afraid that this night will take almost half of his life. Hearing that everything was planned by her behind the scenes, Qin Hongyan couldn't help but tremble with anger. On the side, Song Qingshu hurriedly transmitted his voice to pacify her. Otherwise, she might really throw caution to the wind. That Li Yuanhao really is good luck with women. There was some envy in Ding Chunxiu's tone. After this period of time, when that woman has completed her mission, she will follow you. But before that, you are not allowed to touch her. Li Qiushui coldly warned. Ding Chunxiu's heart trembled. Although he had a relationship with this woman, he knew how vicious a person she was. If he provoked her, she would definitely not care about these old feelings. He hurriedly said, "Of course. I'm still a little worried about that medicine of yours. Let's go see how effective it is before deciding on the next plan." Finishing, Li Qiushui's figure flashed and flew towards Jietan Temple at the foot of the mountain. Ding Chunxiu hurriedly followed behind. Even though there were Li Yuanhao's personal guards guarding the perimeter of Jietan Temple, it was far from the defensive line of the imperial palace. In the eyes of experts like them, it was naturally useless. After waiting for their figures to disappear, Song Qingshu hurriedly said, "Oh no. If we let them sneak into Jietan Temple, they will immediately discover Li Yuanhao's situation. If that happens, things will get out of hand." Qin Hongyan was also a little anxious. After all, there were her clansmen and her daughter in Jietan Temple. If the matter was exposed, the consequences would be unimaginable. "We'll go down immediately." Qin Hongyan subconsciously wanted to stand up, but immediately realized that it was inappropriate. She hurriedly shrunk back into the water, embarrassed and angry. "Quickly move away. I want to put on my clothes." Chapter 1751. As soon as he finished speaking, he directly grabbed Qin Hongyan out of the water. Then he used his other hand to grab the clothes on the side of the big rock and quickly wrap them around her body. Unfortunately, clothes were neither bath towels nor blankets. How could they cover her body in such a short time? Song Qingshu felt a chill in his heart and hurriedly restrained his mind. "Ah!" Qin Hongyan exclaimed. Her face flushed, and she desperately tried to struggle. But she immediately realized that the clothes couldn't cover her body. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. "What are you doing?" Song Qingshu tiptoed and rushed down the mountain. He said in a low voice, "Now Li Qiushui and Ding Chunxiu are going down to see Li Yuanhao. You know Li Yuanhao's current state. If they see you, it will be a big problem. Moreover, this place is not far from Jietan Temple. With their lightness skill, they will arrive soon. If they wait for you to put on your clothes, it will be too late." This was also the reason why he had to make a prompt decision. If the distance was far enough, he could barely catch up with his lightness skill. Unfortunately, the distance was too close, and Li Qiushui and Ding Chuanqiu's martial arts were too high. He was not a god, so how could he delay for so long? Of course, the reason why he did this was largely because he came from the future. In his view, Qin Hongmian's current state was no different from those bikinis on the beach in the future. Moreover, those bikinis in the future were obviously more exposed. Although he knew it was a little inappropriate, he instinctively thought it was not a big problem. Even after listening to his explanation, Qin Hongmian still couldn't feel relieved. She said angrily, "If you want to stop them, you can go by yourself. Why do you have to bring me along?" Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "If you're not there, Li Qiushui and the others will definitely know something is wrong. In that case, both the Mu family and the Qin family will be in great danger." Hearing this, Qin Hongmian opened her mouth but didn't refute anything in the end. Although she was hot-tempered, she still cared about her daughter and her family. Otherwise, she wouldn't have married into the Mu family of Xixia because of the pressure from her family. Song Qingshu was secretly apologetic. In fact, he had some selfish motives for doing this. He hoped to let Li Yuanhao and Li Qiushui fight it out, and see if he could be the fisherman of profit. Seeing that the other party had stopped talking, Song Qingshu flew all the way back. It must be known that Li Qiushui and Ding Chunqiu were both lightness skill experts, so they had to return to their rooms before them. Moreover, they also needed time to make preparations beforehand, so they really could not afford to waste any time. This made things difficult for Qin Hongmian. Because the speed was too fast, the clothes covering her body were almost blown away by the strong wind several times. She had no choice but to desperately pull at the clothes on her body. However, the more she did this, the more she was exposed. If she didn't see that Song Qingshu was concentrating on the front and not looking at her, she would have already jumped up and risked her life. In order to reduce her exposure as much as possible, she could only helplessly press her body tightly against the other's chest. However, this way, she could even faintly feel the other's heartbeat. This really made her both embarrassed and angry. She thought that after tonight, she would definitely break up this marriage. This bastard was too outrageous, who knew how much injustice her daughter would suffer if she followed him. Suddenly, her entire body started to tremble involuntarily. It turned out that she had just gotten out of the water, so her entire body was still wet. Being blown by the cold night wind, she instantly felt a bone-piercing chill attack her. Just as she was feeling uncomfortable, a warm current suddenly came from her back, quickly circulating through her limbs and bones. It was comfortably warm and extremely comfortable. She was slightly startled, then understood that this was Song Qingshu using his inner energy to help her expel the cold. Seeing that he was clearly rushing back with all his might, yet still being so attentive and considerate, Qin Hongmian's heart softened for a moment. Her thoughts of breaking up him and Mu Wanqing couldn't help but fade a little. In truth, even though she had a fiery temper on the surface, she was far from being a ruthless and decisive person. She was far from being able to compare to Li Qiushui, who had a soft voice and a gentle and quiet appearance. In fact, she could not even compare to her junior sister, Gan Baobao, who had a gentle and virtuous appearance. It had to be known that Qin Hongmian had wanted to go to Montua Villa multiple times to kill Li Qingluo because Gan Baobao had instigated trouble between them. She had tried to make both of them suffer great injuries, but she had been kept in the dark and did not know about it. She was completely the kind of person who would foolishly help someone else earn money. Song Qingshu's lightness skill was very good right now. When he used his full strength, even if Li Qiushui and the others set off first, he would still take another route to return to his room. However, since the distance from the mountain down was too short, he did not have enough time to catch up. Hence, right after the two of them arrived, Li Qiushui arrived right after them. In a hurry, Song Qingshu quickly kicked the unconscious Li Yuanhao to the bottom of the bed. Then, he flipped over and rolled onto the bed with Qin Hongmian. He instantly pulled the blanket over both of their bodies. When Happy laid on top of her at such a close distance, Qin Hongmian felt a strange masculine pressure pressing down on her, and she could not help but turn pale. At that moment, Li Qiushui and Ding Chunxiu stood outside the window and looked into the room through the crack. Since the curtains and blanket were blocked, they could not see the situation on the bed clearly. Li Qiushui glared at Ding Chunxiu, who was beside him, and said in slight puzzlement, "Huh? Is there something wrong with your medicine? Why is the room so quiet?" Ding Chunxiu also looked puzzled. That shouldn't be the case. After taking that medicine, they won't stop until they torment themselves for an entire night. Even though both of them had intentionally lowered their voices, it was impossible for them to escape Song Qingshu's ears. A thought appeared in his head, and he quickly said to Qin Hongyan, "Madam, hurry up and make some noise." Qin Hongyan looked dumbfounded, and she instinctively asked, "What noise?" "It's that noise." Song Qingshu quickly whispered a few words into her ear. Qin Hongyan's face instantly flushed red, and she glared at him furiously. "Bastard!" Song Qingshu hastily explained the situation outside, and only then did Qin Hongyan's anger subside a little. However, it was really impossible for her to imitate that kind of noise. "Madam, sorry for the offense." Sensing that Li Qiushui and Ding Chunxiu were going to come in to investigate, Song Qingshu did not care about anything else, and directly used the solitary yang finger to poke a few of the major acupuncture points on her body. Qin Hongyan's heart skipped a beat due to the sudden sensation, and she instinctively cried out in alarm. Those acupuncture points were very sensitive, and even if an ordinary person touched them, they would feel numb and unbearable. Not to mention that the other party had used such a brilliant technique like the solitary yang finger to seal those acupuncture points. The other party's finger seemed to have some sort of magical power, and wisps of spiritual energy flowed into her meridians, continuously traveling through her body. A warm current directly surged up her throat, and the voice she let out was both sweet and charming, scaring even herself. Li Qiushui, who was outside the window, stopped in his tracks and revealed an expression that was not a smile. "So it was a truce just now? Looks like a new round of fighting has begun." Song Qingshu's finger poked the acupuncture points on her body, and waves of true energy continuously flowed in. Qin Hongyan felt that this was too embarrassing, and she instinctively clenched her teeth to endure it. Unfortunately, the more she endured, the more intense the feeling in her body became. It was as if there were thousands of ants crawling on her, and it was also like a cat's furry tail that continuously tugged at her heartstrings. In the end, she still could not endure it, and a series of shameful sounds came out of her mouth. Ding Chunxiu, who was outside the window, listened until his mouth was dry. "Tisk, tsk, tsk, this woman is really an enchantress. That bastardly Yuan Hao really got off easy." Li Qiushui chuckled lightly. The body of a 28-year-old beauty is limp, and the sword at the waist beheads the foolish man. In the light, the head does not fall, but in the dark, the monarch's bone marrow dries up. This sound is clearly Li Yuan Hao's death-hastening talisman. I don't know what you're so envious about. Ding Chunxiu laughed mischievously. That's because Li Yuan Hao himself is almost at the end of his rope. My skills are profound, so I should be able to subdue this enchantress. Li Qiushui's expression suddenly turned cold. I don't care about anything else, but before the dust settles on Li Yuan Hao's body, you're not allowed to touch her. Otherwise, if you ruin my plans, don't blame me for not considering our past relationship. Of course, Ding Chunxiu felt an icy chill, and the charming thoughts in her heart had long disappeared. In the room, Song Qingshu secretly wiped his sweat. It seemed that he had passed this stage. Actually, in order to imitate it, he had even planned to use joyful, true energy. If that was the case, Qin Hongyan's state would definitely be able to fool anyone. But in the end, he still stopped at the brink of a precipice. After all, when he thought about the state of his close female friends when they were affected by joyful true energy, he really played with fire and burned himself if he wasn't careful. Fortunately, he still had the trump card, solitary yang finger. If he pressed the right acupuncture point, coupled with his profound inner force, he could barely pass the stage. Li Qiushui listened for a while outside before smiling. This medicine of yours is really overbearing. It seems that I was worrying too much. Let's go. I don't have the time to eavesdrop here. I don't want to be reminded of the past and add to my sadness. Ding Chunxiu laughed awkwardly. Are you thinking of master again? Li Qiushui's red phoenix eyes glanced at him with a faint smile. You still have a nerve to call him master? That year, it was indeed master who wronged you first. Ding Chunxiu hurriedly explained. Li Qiushui snorted. All right, I don't want to talk about the past. After saying that, she used the water-treading subtle steps. Her whole body turned into a white shadow and disappeared into the night. Ding Chunxiu greedily looked into the room, then hurriedly used her qin gong to chase after her. After confirming that the two of them had gone far away, Song Qingshu finally retracted the power of the solitary yang finger and jumped off the bed. They finally left. I hope madam can forgive me if I offended you just now. At this moment, Qin Hongmian, whose face was flushed with peach blossoms, was speechless. Her cheeks were flushed red, and her eyes were watery, as if they were filled with thousands of words. The charm and gentleness between her brows made one's heart tremble. Her voluptuous figure, which was so mature that it was about to drip water, was lying on the bed. It was enough to make all men suffocate. Song Qingshu took a glance, then shifted his gaze away unnaturally. He silently chanted Amit Ba. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Your Majesty, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.